Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Am I the jerk for not getting plastic surgery to make my wife happy? I'm 35, male. My wife, A, is 34, female. We've been married for 7 years. We have 3 kids, who are 5, 3, and 1, and everything else in our marriage has been pretty good. I work hard, provide for them. I try to be loving, hands-on with the kids, do the chores, do my share. I want my home to be safe, warm, and happy. But lately, there's one thing she won't let go of: the bridge of my nose. It started years ago as a joke. She'd say things like, "Your nose is so strong-looking, you could stop a whole conversation with that bridge." Or, "If you turn sideways, your nose would cast a shadow." I laughed it off, even joked, maybe I should be a model for superhero masks. She laughed. Everyone laughed. I thought it was harmless teasing. Then, about 6 months ago, the tone changed. We were watching TV one night together, and she paused a commercial and said, "You know, if you fixed your nose just a little, I'd feel more confident walking into rooms with you." I asked what she meant, said I was fine with how I look. She told me I wasn't original or photogenic enough, that people would notice me more if I had a straighter bridge. I shrugged and changed the subject. I didn't want to fight over aesthetics, not when the kids are asleep or when I'm already tired from work. But over time, she started saying it more often, not joking anymore. Phrases like, "If you don't get it fixed, I don't know if I'll really respect you," or "I might leave you if you don't do something about it." When she said that, I froze. The kids were nearby, asleep. I was shaken. The idea of surgery scares me deeply. Any surgery does. I worry about risks, recovery, cost, possibility things could go wrong. I also worry about how divorce would affect the kids, about financial fallout. She's a stay-at-home mom. I'm the main earner. I don't want our home to break. I don't want to cause harm to the kids emotionally. So I started being overly appeasing. I'd compliment her more, try to look better in photos, fix my hair, avoid bright angles. But I kept refusing when she pushed for surgery. I said things like, "I need time to think. I don't feel comfortable under a knife. What if it doesn't work or I regret it?" Each time she got frustrated. She said I was stubborn, vain in the wrong way, or that I was hurting our relationship by holding on to pride. One night, we had a heated argument. She told me she feels embarrassed because of how people stare sometimes. I told her that people will stare either way because I'm me. She cried, saying she feels like I don't care enough to make changes for our family. I said I do care. That's why I'm afraid. She said fear was just an excuse, and I stayed silent after that. Weeks passed. I looked into what fixing the bridge would involve, consulted surgeons, read risks. I saw photos of recovery. I saw that recovery would be long, expensive, possibly painful. It would mean time off from work, downtime, and risks. I kept coming back to, is changing this part of me worth all of that? For someone else's happiness? For my own? I wasn't sure. Then something happened that tipped me over. We were at a family gathering. The older brother of my wife's close friend was there. We took pictures. In many of them, she quietly worked the angle so my nose was less noticeable. Later that night, she showed me the photos and said, "Look how much better you'd look if you actually fixed it." It was the moment I realized this isn't about joking or me being vain. It's about her needing control over how I present myself, how we appear in public. I felt hurt. I wanted to say I'm enough as I am, but I was afraid of what she'd say. I love my wife. I love our kids. I love our home. I hate conflict. I hate the idea of divorce. So I kept internalizing, but I also started talking secretly to a counselor, trying to figure out what I want, what I'm willing to do, what boundaries I must have. Now I'm at a point where I need clarity. Am I wrong for refusing the surgery even if she's threatening to leave? Am I being unreasonable by refusing something so personal because of fear, cost, risk, even though I give her everything else? I know she has reasons, but I also know I need respect for my feelings and my body. Not the jerk. If my partner told me they might leave me over the shape of my nose, I'd be booking a session with a therapist, not a plastic surgeon. This isn't about appearance, it's about control. You've bent over backward trying to accommodate everything else. Wanting to keep your own face the way it is? That's more than fair. Stand your ground, and maybe consider if someone who threatens to walk over something so shallow is really worth holding on to. So let me get this straight. She married him, had 3 kids with him, but now his nose is the deal breaker? Honestly, if she wants a new nose so badly, maybe she should just grow one herself. Or at least learn to sniff out a good man when she's got one already. I just don't get how some people can be so lost that they have a treasure right in front of them that they don't even see. Who knows, Karen? Who knows? Am I the jerk for refusing to tone down my wedding dress because my sister is insecure? I'm 27 female. I'm getting married next spring, and honestly, I've been having a pretty smooth engagement up until now. The venue is booked. My fiancé and I have most of the vendors lined up, and my maid of honor is my sister, who I'm very close with. She's 25, and she's had a rough couple of years with body image. She's opened up to me about how she doesn't like being photographed, hates looking at pictures of herself, and she has been dealing with confidence issues. I've always tried to be supportive, complimenting her when I can, reminding her she's beautiful, and never pushing her to do anything she's uncomfortable with. Last week, she came over to see my dress for the first time. I was excited to show her because it's one of the few things I splurged on. It's a simple but elegant gown with a low back and subtle detailing that makes me feel like $1 million. When I took it out of the bag and I held it up, she went quiet. I asked what she thought. After a long pause, she said it was a bit too revealing because of the open back and that it was attention-grabbing. I was a little surprised by the comment, but I stayed calm and said that I loved it and that it made me feel beautiful. That's when she asked if I would be willing to consider picking a different dress, something less dramatic, because she didn't want to feel overshadowed in the wedding photos. It's your wedding. She said she already struggles with how she looks standing next to me and that she's worried people will be focused on me and not even notice her. I reminded her that the wedding day is, well, about me and my fiancé, not about her. I told her gently that I wasn't going to change my dress. She got emotional and said I was prioritizing vanity over her feelings. She accused me of not caring how hard this was for her. I reassured her that I do care, but that I've been dreaming about this dress and this moment for a long time, and I don't think it's fair to ask me to alter it to make someone else more comfortable. She cried and said she might not want to be in the bridal party at all if I insisted on wearing it. Bye, Felicia. I told my fiancé about the conversation later, and he immediately said I had done nothing wrong. He reminded me that the wedding dress is supposed to make the bride feel special, and that compromising on it would only leave me resentful. My mom, on the other hand, said I should consider finding a way to tone it down for peace. She suggested adding a jacket or some lace to the back so it doesn't show as much skin. I said no, not because I'm being stubborn, but because I spent months finding this dress. It's the one that felt right, and I don't want to start making alterations just to satisfy someone else's insecurity. Now I'm stuck between wanting my sister by my side and refusing to let her dictate what I wear. Part of me feels guilty. I don't want her to feel hurt or excluded. But another part of me thinks if I cave, I'll regret it every time I look back on my wedding photos. I want her there. I want her smiling and enjoying herself, not feeling miserable and resentful. But I also can't bring myself to sacrifice something so personal just to keep the peace. So here I am wondering if I'm wrong. Am I being selfish by holding my ground? Or is this one of those moments where you have to accept that someone else's discomfort isn't your responsibility, even if you love them? Because when I picture walking down the aisle in any dress other than this one, it just feels wrong. Not the jerk. She's supposed to be overshadowed in the pictures. She's not the main character. You are. You're not the one that should compromise for peace. She needs to grow up and peace will follow. Your mom needs to stop catering to her and realize this day is about you. Your sister doesn't understand the assignment. Replace her with someone who understands that the job is literally to be overshadowed by the bride. She signed up for the role of maid of honor, not the spotlight. If she can't handle being in the background, maybe she needs a new title or just attend as a guest. The sister actually said, "Tone it down, you're shining too bright." Yeah, because nothing says maid of honor like stealing the spotlight from the bride. It's literally in the title, maid of honor. Your job is to hype the bride up, not compete with her. Am I the jerk for refusing to split my bonus with my girlfriend? I, 27 male, work in sales. This year was tough, but I crushed my numbers and finally got a decent bonus, about $5,000. I was honestly so proud of myself. My first thought was that this could knock a good chunk off my student loans. I've been laser focused on paying them down, and getting that much ahead felt like a huge win. When I told my girlfriend, who's 26, she got excited for me. But before I could even finish explaining what I wanted to do with the money, she started talking about how we could use it to take a trip together. She was throwing out destinations, looking up resorts on her phone, saying we deserved a little getaway after such a long year. I told her as gently as I could that as much as I'd love to travel with her, I really needed to use this bonus to get ahead on my debt. She immediately deflated. Then she got quiet and eventually said that we'd been together 2 years and that my money isn't just my money anymore. That stopped me. We don't live together, we don't share finances, and I've never asked her to spend her money on me. I reminded her of that, thinking it would help her understand where I was coming from. Instead, she got upset and said that if I saw her as part of my future, I should want to spend the money in a way that benefits both of us. I explained that becoming debt-free does benefit both of us because it puts me in a stronger financial position for the future, for us if we stay together. She said I was being selfish, that I was choosing debt over making memories, and that if I cared about her, I would be excited to spend this bonus celebrating together. I didn't raise my voice, but I told her firmly that I have been working hard to dig myself out of this hole, and throwing a big chunk of money at a vacation would set me back months. I said we could plan a trip later, once I'd saved specifically for that, but I couldn't justify using this windfall for anything other than getting ahead financially. She has been cold ever since. She barely texts during the day now, and when we do talk, she drops comments about how I don't prioritize her. Apparently, she's told her friends that I choose debt over her, and now a few of them are messaging me saying I should live a little and not be so uptight. It's honestly making me question the whole relationship. I want to share good things with her, but we're not married. This isn't shared income, and while I love her, I can't ignore how stressful debt has been on my mental health. Every payment I make feels like a step toward real freedom. I keep thinking about how different our priorities seem. For me, paying off debt is a way of taking care of my future and anyone in it. For her, it feels like the priority is creating memories right now, even if it means carrying that debt longer. So I'm here wondering, am I wrong for keeping this bonus to myself and using it the way I think is best? Or is this one of those situations where two people just have completely different values around money, and no one's technically wrong, but it shows a bigger incompatibility? Because when I picture sending that money off to my student loan servicer, I feel relief. When I picture blowing it all on a vacation, I just feel stressed about coming home to the same debt staring me in the face. You do realize if you sign any legal documents partnering with this woman and it goes sour, she's coming for all of your money, right? Actually, never mind. She's coming for your money now. Sounds like she's claiming our money way too early. Keeping it for debt is the smart move. Mixing finances before living together usually blows up. OP, you're not living together or engaged, yet she thinks she's your wife and that your finances are hers. Want to bet she thinks her own money is still just hers? OP, she just showed you who she is. Believe her. Her mask slipped. Don't help her put it back on. Rip it off and run. Not the jerk. Update. After sitting with it for a bit, I decided we needed a real conversation. I invited her over and explained again how important this was for me, that every extra payment brings me closer to being debt-free, and that financial stability is one of my top priorities. She listened, but basically said the same thing she said before, that after 2 years together, my money should benefit both of us, and that she wants to enjoy life now instead of waiting until everything is perfect. I told her that I respect her wanting experiences, but that I can't build a relationship on financial resentment. I said I needed to pay off my loans now, not years from now, Because it's what keeps me sane. We didn't fight, but it was tense. She left pretty upset and said she needed to think about whether she wanted to be with someone who puts money first. I went ahead and made a big payment on my loans. Watching that balance drop was honestly one of the best feelings I've had in months. Right now, we're taking a little space from each other. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel more certain than ever that I made the right call. If we get back together, we'll have to find common ground about money, and if we don't, at least I know I stayed true to my priorities. Good on you for holding your ground. It sounds like you handled this really calmly and respectfully, and honestly, if she can't accept that you're prioritizing getting out of debt, that's a big compatibility flag. Money issues break up a lot of couples. Better to figure out now if you're on the same page than after you've merged finances. I'm glad you made the payment. That was clearly the right call for your peace of mind. That said, I can see why she might have felt left out. She was excited to celebrate with you, and from her perspective, it might feel like you didn't want to share the good news in a way that included her. If you two do stay together, maybe plan a small, budget-friendly trip or dinner to celebrate next time. It might help her feel part of your wins.
2 years of dating, and she's already calling it our money?
Yeah, and they don't even live together. That's not partnership. That's a subscription fee.
I love that he sent the money to his loans anyway. Nothing says, I'm serious about the future, like getting out of debt.
Exactly. You can't build memories on maxed out credit.
If she can't handle him being responsible now, wait until they're married and he wants to talk about budgets.
Better to find out early than be arguing over joint accounts later. Lady tried to cut in front of me to order. I get a 30-minute lunch break at work. It's not down to the second strict, but I like to keep it short and predictable so I can get back to my desk and eat without feeling rushed. Usually I pick somewhere close, grab something quick, and make it back before anyone even notices I was gone. That day, I decided to stop by Walmart. They've got a hot bar that's cheap and surprisingly decent if you catch it at the right time. It's close enough that I can be in and out no problem, or at least that was the plan. When I got there, the hot bar is fully stocked, but there's no one behind the counter. This isn't unusual for this Walmart. It's like a game of chance every time. Will someone appear in 30 seconds or 5 minutes? I lean against the counter and just wait. A couple of minutes go by. I can feel my watch ticking. Then, out of nowhere, 3 kids come sprinting down the aisle like it's a relay race, shrieking about mac and cheese. They run right up to the hot bar and press their faces to the glass, leaving perfect little nose smudges while they point at every single item they want. I glance around for a parent. A few seconds later, their mom strolls up from the produce section, completely unhurried, chatting loudly on the phone about something that's clearly not urgent. She's describing what somebody said to her at work, laughing and barely looking at her kids. Then she stands right next to me, and not just next to me, like right next to me. Close enough that if I shifted my elbow, I might bump her. I'm already feeling slightly claustrophobic, but I keep waiting. After what feels like forever, probably 5 or 6 minutes in total, an employee finally comes out from the back. She glances between me and the mom and asks who she can help. I open my mouth to order because I've been waiting this entire time, but before I can say anything, the mom starts talking. She launches straight into ordering, like I'm invisible. Nope, not today. I turn and say, as calmly as I can, "Sorry, I've been waiting here. I'm in a rush. I need to order first." She freezes and looks at me like I just committed a crime. Her mouth falls open, eyes wide. I don't wait for her to argue. I just start giving the employee my order, listing off what I want, watching them scoop it onto the tray. By the time I pay and grab my bag, the mom is still standing there staring at me, kids bouncing around her. Now, here's the thing. I'm not usually a confrontational person. Most days, I'd rather quietly fume and let someone cut me in line than deal with the awkwardness. But that day, I had just enough time pressure and just enough patience to stand up for myself. And I'm glad I did, because she had been leisurely wandering Walmart with her 3 kids, talking on the phone, clearly not in a hurry, and was about to place an order for multiple people. I could picture myself standing there another 5 minutes while they figured out which kid wanted what and my lunch break would be gone. I walked out of that Walmart with my food and a weird little burst of pride. It wasn't a big dramatic confrontation, but for me, it was a small win. Because sometimes, you just have to remind people that the world doesn't stop for them. Everyone else has places to be too. Glad you did. Too many people don't speak up, and so the entitled ignorance continues. It takes real guts to speak up, especially for non-confrontational types. It can feel so awkward, even when you're clearly right. Same thing happened to me at my local fish market. I was there first. Some guy walks up next to me before someone came from the back of the house. He made eye contact with the employee as soon as he could, so when they proceeded towards him, I raised my voice and said, "I was here first, actually." I was so proud of myself. Proud of you too. When I worked at Walmart, we had a regular who honestly came in more than she had to. She was older, moved slowly around the store with her cart, and was genuinely sweet. She had this habit of telling the employees who was there first when there were several people waiting. Blue shirt, big purse, then the kid. Sometimes her descriptions were more accurate than people liked, but it was always helpful. We called her the line police, and everyone loved her.
So homegirl just strolls up, phone in hand, and thinks she's the main character?
Yup, except OP hit pause on her little episode real quick.
My wife expects me to buy our kids Starbucks every day. My wife and I adopted Mila, who's 10, Grace, who's 5, and Lucas, who's 4, from foster care. Grace and Lucas were in a very loving home that would have adopted them if they could. We're still in contact with their foster parents and see them every few months. Mila's home was horrible. She was the first one that came to us, and we spent nearly a month in the hospital, and she needed a feeding tube when she came home. Mila has some special needs that are a direct result of that home. A few months ago, we got a call asking if we could take a 14-year-old, Cassie, from the same home that Mila was in. Cassie's needs aren't as severe as Mila's, but between that and the fact that she's years behind in school, normal schooling would have been difficult for her. My sister was a teaching assistant for special ed at our local school district. It was so bad that she didn't even last a year there. When she heard about the girls, she said to not let them end up in special ed in our district. My wife quit her job and homeschooled Mila for the first few months, but she's not a teacher and she doesn't know how to help Mila the way she needed it. We started looking for special needs schools and found one over an hour away that we love. My wife got a job in the office there, so we got cheap tuition for Mila and eventually Cassie when she started school there. The girls are doing great at this school, and we're considering moving closer to it to make life easier. The issue is my wife, Mila, and Cassie are out of the house by 6:30 every morning. Cassie is up at 5:30 and Mila is up at 6. They're all tired when it's time to go to school and work, so as a treat, they go to Starbucks every morning. Mila gets a hot chocolate, Cassie is allowed to get a small coffee, and my wife gets a coffee to help them get through the morning. They're not always the best at getting the cups out of the car by the time the younger two see it, and lately they've been throwing a temper tantrum every morning when we pass by a Starbucks. My wife thinks we should just get it for them, but I don't want to. I think it's a waste of money, and they can have chocolate milk at home. Am I the jerk for not getting them Starbucks? Why can't your wife, Cassie, and Mila make their coffee and hot chocolate at home and take them in reusable cups? Then the other kids can have the same hot chocolate. Remove overpriced Starbucks from the equation. ETA. There's way too much unnecessary arguing and disrespectful communication happening in this thread. I feel my intentions are being sorely misunderstood and dissimilar comparisons are being made. I'm sorry if what I've said is offensive to anyone. Not the jerk. Kids can't always get what they want. They need to learn this quickly. Also, while I do not know your financial situation, Starbucks is expensive, and that can add up quickly between 4 kids. Oh, finally some common sense. Even more if you two buy something. Coffee can be made at home for cheap. Get a few creamers, non-dairy creamers, maybe even an appliance, whipped cream, chocolate, and caramel syrups, and voila. My wife and I were both Starbucks junkies. Multiple trips a week, and not the cheap brewed stuff usually. For Christmas 2 years ago, my wife gave me some very fancy coffee making equipment. We immediately bought an entire selection of flavored syrups, chocolate, and white chocolate sauce and caramel. I bought 2 cups of Starbucks since. It's an expensive one-time outlay. We put about $2,000 into the coffee bar at home, but at 3 cups a day, 5 days a week, and an average of $4 a cup, do the math. That's $3,100 a year in coffee. The setup would pay for itself in a year or so. In my opinion, no jerks here. What's with all these people suddenly freaking out about sugar when it's a hot chocolate and a small coffee after you've woken up at 5 a.m.? Just tell the youngest kids they can have Starbucks when they're older or when they take part in the early morning routine. They'll survive. I don't get all of you're a jerk for even looking at Starbucks. Yeah, I also don't understand all these people freaking out over hot chocolate and small coffee. What's wrong with getting them a little treat for waking up at the crack of dawn? It's really not that much sugar or that much caffeine.
No, it's just a total waste of money. 5 days a week buying that kind of stuff. What's wrong with people?
A lot, Karen. A lot. Am I the jerk for teaching my son to call me dad against his mother's wishes? I hooked up with a woman named Mary that I didn't know at a party in 2016. About a year ago, someone reached out to me and told me she knew Mary and her now 6-year-old son was mine. This person hadn't known my name until meeting another friend of mine, and they figured it out. Apparently, Mary had started dating someone, John, just after we hooked up, then found out she was pregnant. Mary and John got serious, got married, and John adopted my son. After I found out, I got a lawyer and filed for custody in my state. Mary and John fought me through the whole process, telling me not to break up their family. They have a younger daughter together. After lots of legal fees, I finally forced a paternity test and got every other weekend. My intent is to keep pushing until I have 50-50 custody. I looked into reversing the adoption, but it's basically impossible, so I'll probably have to wait until my son is 18. I've been having my son over for the past few months, and it's been great. He gets along great with my girlfriend, too. He understands that I'm his father, but of course he calls John dad. I'm not trying to get him to stop that because I don't want to confuse him or make him uneasy. But last weekend, I did tell him that he can call me dad, too, instead of Mr. Last Name, like his mom told him to. He seemed fine with it and called me dad while he was with me. His mom found out and has been pestering me all week, saying that I'm just a donor and John is his real dad and she'll take me to court for parental alienation. The last thing she said was that I can be an uncle, but my son only has one dad. I'm ignoring most of what she said, but I'm wondering if I am the jerk for asking my son to call me dad in this situation. Edit. Some people are asking how I could gain parental rights adoption. It is possible because I did not consent to the adoption, and Mary claimed she did not know the father. The birth certificate was blank for father. John decided to adopt when my son was 1 year old, and he got married to Mary. She's going to take you to court for parental alienation? Oh, I'd love to see that one. Your Honor, this man that I hooked up with, the donor for my baby, I never told him and lied about knowing who he was so that I could have my new husband adopt him. I then fought tooth and nail to keep them from ever meeting and getting to know each other. This man actually told his son that he could call him dad, causing our son to be alienated from his adoptive father. In case my opinion is not clear, you're not the jerk, and there's no reason this kid can't have two dads. Not the jerk. And it's great that you clearly want to be a parent to your kid that you just found out about. I do kind of hope you've spoken with a child therapist to make sure you're handling this as best you can to help your kid understand what's happening and get him help if he needs some help processing everything. And you could always approach other terms for dad, like pop, daddy-o, or something else, and see what else you can come up with and what he's comfortable with. Plenty of kids have two dads, and I hope you can all find peace. The more love a kid has, the better. You're the jerk. The kid is 6, and you've done nothing ever to be a dad to him until now. The kid has a stable life with his mother and adoptive father. That's his home. That's the only life he's ever known. Wanting to suddenly have 50-50 custody to uproot his stability is not in his best interests. It's selfish. You want this for you, not for your kid. The kid barely knows you, you're not family to him, and to tear him away 50% of the time from the only family he's ever known is gross. OP is this kid's dad, and it's through no fault of his own that he's had no contact until now. That's on the mother. How can you say it's not in the kid's best interest to have his biological dad who wants to be a loving and caring parent in his life? That's crazy. Kids can adapt to having additional family members who care for them and love them. My boyfriend didn't propose to me in the agreed upon time, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm considering leaving him. It's been over 8 years. We started dating at 18 in college. I understood that we would have to wait to get engaged because we were so young. However, I feel that it's been too long. He says we're almost at the finish line, but I keep seeing that line being pushed further and further back. First, we said we would wait until we were financially stable. Then he wanted to go into law school after 2 years of being out of college. We always said we would be engaged when law school was over, but then the bar exam came and sidetracked that. We recently moved, and now we're waiting to see how much our old apartment charges us for damages. My deadline was the day after he graduated. I've already been waiting an extra 3 years because he chose to go to law school. We have enough money in our bank account. I get that he wants to be extremely financially stable, but it's September and I'm breaking. Every time I talk to him about it, it gets pushed further back. He says we're 2 months away, but I ran out of patience 4 months ago. It's driving me crazy, and I feel like it's ruined the idea of being engaged for me. I wanted it to be spontaneous and out of love, but I don't think that was ever actually going to happen. I don't think he's scared of marriage. He offers to marry me at a courthouse all the time. I just think he doesn't care about all of the romantic stuff, and he's just going through the motions for me. I've been pushed 4 months past my breaking point, and I don't know if I've ruined our relationship by pushing the issue. Right now, it's to the point where getting engaged will no longer make me happy. Is it over? Am I just fooling myself? Have I gone mad? Edit. I just want to say that I have never given him a deadline. The deadline was for me to leave. It was in my head. Edit 2. I can't believe I need to say this, but we have talked about a timeline for marriage a ton. We had an agreement. It wasn't set in stone, but it was discussed. No, I can't propose to him. Partly because it's not what we both want, but mostly because we share a bank account. That amount of money needs to be mutually agreed upon before it's spent. Every deadline I set for myself, that I didn't follow through on admittedly, was based on timelines he set. He agreed to get engaged after his graduation. He agreed to this before he started law school. Time passes and things change. I was understanding. Then he said it would happen by the end of summer. Now it's the end of September and he's saying by February. This is the last time I wait. He has some reasonable points, but if it's moved again, that's it. Update. I talked to him about it. He said he was planning on proposing in the very near future. He said we have a few expenses coming up, car, apartment, etc., and he wanted to wait and see before buying a ring. I'm skeptical but hopeful. I asked him when he would propose naturally. He said February because you just can't force somebody to propose and get married to you. I just don't get it. Huh. Based on what you've written, I can't tell if you guys are just not communicating well or understanding each other, or if he's just stringing you along. If you get the idea he's stringing you along, then absolutely leave. But if not, communication issues can be resolved. The one thing I'm side-eyeing, though, is not getting engaged. Getting engaged doesn't cost money. People have long engagements all the time. He could propose now, and you could plan the wedding for a year or more from now, unless you're expecting an insanely expensive ring. You want an official engagement, most likely something cute and romantic, along with the wedding including your friends and family. He says he'll just marry you at the courthouse. Being married isn't the issue perhaps, but rather what you two think should lead up to that. He seems to dread that aspect and would rather skip it all. You said in your comment that you're the breadwinner so far, and you've been supporting him, so the issue isn't necessarily financial on his end, but maybe he wants to be more established. You should talk to him about the whole ceremony aspect because that seems to be the stone in the road. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
It has to be a mutual thing. You can't force somebody to propose to you or marry you. It just has to be a mutual thing.
Yeah, it really sucks when someone keeps trying to pressure you to marry them. And what sucks even more is when you break up and they keep threatening you for stuff that you paid for, that they're demanding. Why do some people suck so much?
Yowza, Reddit boy. You sound like you might need a smoothie.
Wife complains I don't clean while I cook, so I proceed to sparkle the kitchen instead of making dinner. I, 33 male, often do the cooking at home, including the washing up that happens after. My wife, who's 34, does not usually cook. We established that by our second date years ago. I love her to bits, but she is a culinary disaster, and time and sweat has failed to make improvements. It's a lost battle. The sequence of dinner prep usually starts as soon as I finish work. This involves chopping meat and vegetables and rounding up anything that was previously marinated or thawed. This is immediately followed by cooking and then serving to be eaten hot. It seems logical to me that meals should be enjoyed while they are fresh, and cleaning up can wait, especially if the kitchen's not being used by anyone else. I'm also the only one who normally does the washing after everything is eaten, and I wash all the cutlery and cooking prep stuff in the same process. This is done while my wife settles our toddler into bed. I prefer this setup because I can get all the washing done in one go, and everyone can eat their meals at the same time together while it's fresh. I do not like washing the pots and pans after cooking and before eating. My wife, however, seems to get annoyed at this. Every now and then, while I'm cooking, if she walks in, she'll start complaining, making notes that I should pack this and that up, that I should clean the board while waiting for the stir-fry to finish. Sometimes there's literally no downtime for certain dishes, especially with several to serve before it gets too late for the toddler. To be clear, I certainly clean some things as I go, especially when it concerns raw meat or things that need to go back into the fridge. I'll wipe down if there's any offensive spills, But for things like chopping boards, certain empty packages or condiments, I'll leave them out on the bench until I'm done or when I'm washing up. Things that I feel don't pose risks or have any urgency to be put away other than making the kitchen look tidy during cooking. Happy to be proven wrong. Anyway, one day, for whatever reason, my wife got real snarky at me because I left the chopping board out next to the pans, saying it's not hard to clean as I cook. Whatever, fine. So for the next meal, I made sure to clean everything I touched as I started my meal prep. I had already made sure the little one had her dinner, so there's no harm in drawing this out. Need to open that can of pasta sauce? Better wash down the can opener and dry it before we start. Gotta wipe down the whole kitchen top too. Oops, dropped a garlic clove. I'd better give the whole kitchen floor a good scrub. Is that a bit of charred residue on the stove? Okay, better degrease the entire area. You get my drift. Wife has put the little one to sleep by now, so 3 hours later the kitchen is sparkling, literally. Pasta has not entered water and the sauce materials have not touched the pan. Wife asks, where's dinner? I tell her I haven't started cooking because I still need to clean the fridge. There were some stains under the tomato tray. She went back to bed. I still cooked and packed her lunch. I have not been harassed since. Edit. There's no expectation for my wife to clean. I've made it clear that I'm happy to do it as I clean up messes I make. We split our duties, so she spends that time on other things that need attention around the house.
There's two types of people in this world. Those who clean the pots and pans as they're cooking, and those who wait after they eat to do it.
Well, actually, I kind of do half and half. Like I clean half the stuff as I'm cooking and when I finish, and then I wait for the bigger things until after I eat.
Well, you're just weird.
Would I be the jerk for suing my sister over something that her daughter did? I, female 43, have a daughter who's 16. My sister, who's 40, has a daughter who's 15, and always had the idea of having both our daughters be the best of friends. She would only schedule playdates with my daughter and not any of her daughter's school friends. It kept going on, and her daughter began to resent mine. She would start off by stealing things here and there, and went on by lying about her. My sister coddled her daughter her entire life and had one of those weird relationships with her like the ones on TV. She had a real-life brat as her daughter, but everyone in our extended family would brush it off as fiery personality. Now on to what happened yesterday. My daughter won a school raffle and got the grand prize, which was a MacBook. My daughter got praise from nearly everyone. Everyone except my sister, who I didn't mind about. On my dad's 78th birthday, I sent out invitations to everyone and said gifts were optional as I had already bought him quite a lot of gifts. My sister and her daughter show up with this juice maker and some fruits, and they rush to my kitchen. While everyone was getting settled in, my daughter yells from her bedroom. I got scared and ran upstairs to see what was going on, and I saw my niece with her juice maker and my daughter's laptop covered in a smoothie. I yelled for my sister to come upstairs, and she just comes out of the bathroom next to my daughter's room. She said it's no big deal and that computers were probably waterproof. It isn't. I said, what was that smoothie doing out of the kitchen? And why didn't my sister use the downstairs bathroom since upstairs is off limits? I told her that she would be paying for the repairs, but she just brushed it off and said it was fine and family doesn't work like that. She headed downstairs, but I called the police and her daughter got kicked out. The rest of the party was awkward and tense. Later on, I got texts from everyone that saw what happened asking for me to just drop it. Some even called me entitled. I was thinking on serving her with court papers. Would I be the jerk? Update. It was intentional. While I was away, I took the computer to a repair shop. I asked if they could fix the water damage. They said yes, but it's not easy. While they were trying to fix the computer, they opened the back and saw there were multiple punctures in the wires and other delicate parts. I've decided to file a lawsuit. What the extended family thinks of me is irrelevant because my sister allowed her daughter to destroy it on purpose. I'm getting in touch with a lawyer. Not the jerk to expect sister and niece to pay for damages. Go no contact until they do, and even after, go low contact. Who the heck brings a juicer upstairs and sets it on a brand new computer? This was absolutely planned and done deliberately to stick it to your daughter. Your sister's excuses are laughable. Definitely take her to small claims court to pay for the cleaning and any repairs to refurbish the computer. Not the jerk. You'll have my job? Okay, Karen, this will be interesting. So I'm out shopping for a few things. Bread, milk, bin bags, etc. I remember that I need some ham, so I go to the cooked meats aisle and look for something tempting. As I'm searching for something nice, I hear a voice behind me saying, "Excuse me," in a not at all polite manner. I look over my shoulder and see the local Karen. I acknowledge her and take 2 steps to the side, but don't turn around. I feel a tap on my shoulder and the same non-too-polite voice saying,
Excuse me, I'm talking to you. Don't ignore me.
I turn around and open my mouth to ask what she wants and why she's being rude. But before I can speak, she starts going off on me for being a lazy member of staff and ignoring her. I say, if you think I work here, you're wrong. I don't. And she says,
You're just being lazy. I'll have your job.
really? I say, badly feigning surprise. You'll have my job?
Yes, I will.
She says, with a strange mixture of superiority, righteousness, and stupidity. Okay, suit yourself. You can have it. I waved my hands around in strange shapes and announced, you are now officially a member of staff. It is said that a pitcher can speak 1,000 words, but the look on her face at this point just said, what the heck?
But I want you to get these things for me.
She starts. Don't ask me. I'm a customer. You should ask a colleague since you work here. In fact, you can help me with what I need.
What? But I don't work here.
She says, yes, you do. You said you'd have my job and I gave it to you. Now buzz off and leave me alone. She stomps off, but that wasn't the end of it. Another customer, who's clearly seen the interaction, stopped her halfway up the aisle and said, loudly enough for me to hear, oh, finally someone who works here. Can you get that heavy thing off the top shelf?
Oh, buzz off,
she said, and walked, presumably, out of the shop. Other customer, you absolute legend. Entitled sister thinks she deserves my house because she has 3 kids. So my grandfather was a pretty wealthy man, and because of it, he and my mother had a rocky relationship and haven't spoken in over 5 years. My 2 sisters turned out just like my mother, a high sense of entitlement. Believe the world owes them everything, and my grandfather's money didn't help this. They expected my grandfather to pay for a lavish lifestyle. Eventually, he ended up cutting them off, which caused them to stop speaking to him. They even tried pressuring me to do the same. I refused. Me and my grandfather were really close. I spent a lot of time at the house. It was one of my favorite places in the world, and I am absolutely thrilled he left it to me. My grandfather was my best friend. He was the first person I came out to when I was 15, and his reaction is still my favorite. But he sadly passed away a few months ago. This wasn't a surprise by any means, as he had been battling cancer for years. Well, my grandfather ended up leaving everything to me and 2 of my cousins he was also close with. I got the family home, which is a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house with a pool and a hot tub. I was also left a good chunk of money, which will really help with student loans. One cousin got my grandfather's antique car collection. Not sure if it can really be called a collection, as there are only 3, but my grandfather called it that, so that's what I'm going with. The other cousin got my grandfather's painting collection, which was pretty big and has a few pretty expensive paintings in it. But seeing as she is an artist herself, I doubt she will sell them. I think she actually wants to donate a few of the more well-known ones to our local museum. My mother and sisters got nothing. Well, as you can likely guess, they freaked out. There wasn't much they could do about my cousin, as they didn't really speak to my family for other reasons. But with me, they flipped out. My mom was mad because this was her family home, and she thinks she deserves it. My sister thinks I should give it to her because she's married and has 3 kids, and she needs it more. She already has a nice house, by the way. This one is just more expensive. I do not want to give the house to her. My grandfather wanted me to have it. That's gotta mean something, right? And just because I do not have a family right now doesn't mean I won't in the future. Me and my boyfriend have even talked about it multiple times. Like I said, this place means a lot to me, and I want to keep it. My other sister has no interest in the house, she just wants some of the money I got. She recently got out of prison and is pretty much broke. I wouldn't have had a problem giving her some of the money if it weren't for the fact that before going to prison, she stole a lot of money from me and many other family members, including my grandfather.
I'd think about getting some sort of a restraining order against them. Never underestimate the power of a Karen.
Am I the jerk for not letting my niece use her iPad during our wedding? My wife and I got married September 4th, and this drama is still going on. We paid a lot of money for a videographer to capture our ceremony. We told everyone at the rehearsal dinner we would be having everyone turn their devices off for the ceremony just so that there wouldn't be any distractions. My brother pulled me aside later on to tell me that his daughter, who's 4, would need to have her iPad to get through the ceremony. Otherwise, she would be really noisy and wouldn't sit still and might ruin the day for us. I told him no, she wouldn't be using it because there's a chance she may turn the volume on or something, and I really don't want to take that risk. I thought that was the end of it, but the next day, my brother, who was also my best man, came to me and said that his daughter was having a hard time today and that she would need her iPad. I again told him no. He said that if she didn't have it, she would make a fuss, and the missus wouldn't want that ruining her big day, now would she? And that kind of upset me, because yeah, it's her day, but it's also mine. I'm marrying the woman I love, and we both made this no devices decision together. I told him if he couldn't respect it, then his daughter could wait outside with either him or his wife, but her iPad wouldn't be in there. He was annoyed, but we left it at that. And then it happens. Middle of the ceremony, we hear, "We finally found the perfect house." And then some fumbling as my sister-in-law is trying to get the iPad to shut off, and my niece starts to whine. Some ad started playing as my niece was playing a game. My wife and I were annoyed, but we, along with everyone else, laughed it off and continued on. During the reception, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law ran up to us, saying they didn't know the volume was up so loud, and they had my niece apologize for it. My wife said it's done and over with, and it was rude of you to do. My bro said it wasn't fair, so I said that it wasn't fair sister-in-law allowed it, seeing as we already talked about it, and that going against what we had already asked of them and the iPad was a major jerk move, and that them not apologizing but having their daughter make a big show of doing so was sending the wrong message, seeing as she's 4 and she doesn't even understand, and that it was them who allowed it to happen. My brother said that it wasn't that deep and that I'm being ridiculous. Then the rest of the reception was kind of awkward, even during the best man speech. He tried to make a joke. "Yeah, that was my daughter's iPad making the noise. She likes to be a rule breaker." And it just made my wife and I angry. I've said very few things to him since this happened. My parents are starting to think I'm the jerk for not just moving on and for waiting for him to apologize. Am I the jerk? Edit. I keep seeing this come up about how if we didn't want this to happen, then we should have had a child-free wedding. We essentially did in the fact that we told everyone, hey, people will be drinking, so if you want to leave your kids at home, that's fine with us. And most people did. My niece came and 4 other kids, one being only 7 months old, and then a 5, a 7, and a 12-year-old. It also helps that naturally, both sides of the family are late-night partiers, so to leave the kids home wasn't a huge offense. And for those asking what we would have done had she instead started fussing and crying, that's fine with us. We would have rather had that instead of a 30-second YouTube ad going on and on, then an awkward scramble to get it turned off, which threw off the flow of our vows. If she started fussing, that's something we could have laughed about, and her mom would have taken her outside. Instead, we had all the guests turning to look at them in a very awkward display of, you were asked to do one thing. And yes, we still laughed, but for us, it wasn't the same. It really wasn't. As for offering up other solutions for my brother and sister-in-law to use to entertain their daughter, respectfully, that's not my job. I'm not her parent. We told them no devices. We had several options, as people have mentioned, and we are not her parents, so it wasn't on us to offer up alternative suggestions, seeing as we were a little more preoccupied with getting everything in order to be married. Maybe I shouldn't be so bothered by this, but I am, because it was the lack of courtesy and apology on my brother and sister-in-law's behalf. My niece apologizing doesn't really mean anything because she doesn't understand what she did. Her mom handed her the iPad. My niece is 4 and doesn't understand that what happened was rude. She doesn't grasp that yet. It should have been on my brother and sister-in-law to apologize. Am I the jerk for calling my brother-in-law lazy in front of everyone? Last weekend, I invited my husband's 2 brothers and their wives to stay over the weekend and have a birthday party for my husband. My husband's youngest brother arrived on Friday night with his wife and stayed in our guest bedroom, while the eldest brother offered to smoke some pork overnight and bring it to the party. The poor guy was up all night cooking it, and I told him I didn't want him to lose out on his sleep over it, but he insisted. So, on Saturday, I get up early and I'm cooking and baking all day, and my husband, his brother's wives, and his eldest brother are all helping out. Everyone is busting their tails, except the youngest. He's sitting down in the living room playing video games for hours without a single offer to help. Even the few times I hinted to him that I needed help, he came up with some BS excuse why he wasn't going to be able to help out. Fast forward to the party. Everything came out great. All the food was good and everyone was enjoying themselves. And the jerk brother makes a joke about my cooking to everyone at the party. At this point, I had had enough of him, so I told him, "You're one to talk. Everyone helped with the cooking and to put this party together except for you. You're a lazy and entitled parasite." Now, I know that my retort wasn't the most diplomatic and that I shouldn't have embarrassed him in front of everyone. And my husband got mad at me and said that I was a jerk for calling him out in front of everyone and that I needed to apologize to his brother. I told him I don't owe him an apology at all. Am I the jerk? I feel like one after the fact. I know I should have kept my mouth shut, but I still don't think I should apologize to him. Edit. For those who say that I shouldn't have expected people to help out, I will add that it's an unwritten family rule that when a family member invites others for a dinner or a party, everyone is expected to contribute, either by helping out or bringing a dish. It's always been like that for as long as my husband can remember, and I've adapted to their custom. Edit 2. My brother-in-law always never contributes. Not just at family gatherings, but with anything. My husband's family is very close-knit. Actually, everyone is awesome but him, and they're always helping each other out. He only asks for help, but never helps anyone. In my husband's own words, he always finds a way to worm himself out of helping. Edit 3. My brother-in-law said in front of everyone that my food tasted like prison food. For those wondering if in fact the food tasted bad, it didn't. It tasted delicious. Everyone was complimenting it, and some requested the recipes for some of the dishes, which is what prompted him to make that unsavory joke. He also didn't have a problem with the food, as he had already had 2 servings and was on his way for his 3rd before insulting it. Edit 4. Everyone, even his wife, started asking him for help, and he would still not help out. I feel bad for his wife because it's not just at gatherings, it's with everything. She does everything around the house, from cooking to fixing stuff that gets broken to doing all the errands, and all he does is play video games and watch TV. He's a complete deadbeat. I don't know how she puts up with it. She's got the patience of a saint. Edit 5. Some commenters suggesting putting away our console. The problem is that he has his own and takes it wherever he goes. This time was no exception. As soon as he got up, he connected his console and started playing. Edit 6. Some people have asked why my husband didn't say anything to my brother-in-law first. He didn't have time. As soon as my brother-in-law insulted my food, I snapped back with my insult. I don't know what happened after that because I was seeing red and left the room and went for a walk to calm myself down. I knew if I stayed, I would say a few more choice words to him and would have made things worse. They may have scolded him, I don't know. By the way, thank you for all of your comments, even those that say I'm the jerk. It's very enlightening to see people's opinion of this situation and to make me aware where I went too far.
I don't think you went too far. If homeboy doesn't want you calling him a parasite, maybe he should stop being one.
Sister copied my 5th grade book report. Evil mama bear lets her get away with it. This happened when I was 13 and in middle school. My sister was 10 and in 5th grade at the time. 3 years earlier, when I was in the 5th grade, I did a book report on a light novel I don't really remember, and I got a B+ on the book report. My dad had a habit of filing all the returned school assignments of myself and my sister, and he cataloged them by day, month, year, and topic. I thought his doing so was a bit overzealous, but I didn't really dwell on it. Fast forward 3 years, and one day I noticed my sister came home from school whining about having to do a boring book report. I told her I did a few of them for school in her grade, and they're really not so hard. Just pick a book, read it, and then write about it. Then I brought up the name of the book I'd done a report on at the time and said it might be a good choice for her as it was an easy novel to read with big fonts printed on the pages. Sis had 2 weeks to do the book report, but I never once saw her reading any book at all during that time, and I repeatedly reminded her. She'd just brush me off and say, "I got this." Then one day, my sister comes home all proud of herself that she got a B on her book report, which was odd to me since she really didn't read anything as far as I'd known. Plus, she didn't really care to apply herself. I knew she had the smarts, just not the drive. So out of curiosity, I picked up the report and started to read it. And to my shock, it was just like the one I'd written 3 years earlier. She didn't even change the title. I was furious and called her out for copying my work. Sister just ran into mom's arms crying. Me, "She copied my old book report. She doesn't deserve this grade." Mom,
No, she didn't. You are mistaken. My little princess wrote this all by herself. She earned that B.
Me. Fine then. I'll just talk to Dad when he gets home and we'll see who's right.
Don't you talk back to me, young man. Go to your room.
Me. With pleasure. This was before I got my Nokia cell phone, so as I was walking to my room, I sneakily grabbed the cordless phone from its charger and called my dad from upstairs. He was upset and agreed to look at his records when he got home. Surprise, surprise, when he opened up the file cabinet that had my elementary schoolwork in it, it looked like it had been gone through. We found the original book report pretty easily. It had been sloppily shoved back into the file and was crudely folded in half. We read the title, and sure enough, it was the same. We came out of the office, and my dad asked to see my sister's book report. Mom stood her ground and said that her little princess didn't do anything, but Dad was adamant. Mom tried to double down, but Dad told her if she was so confident sister didn't copy my work, then to let him read it. So Mom finally handed him the book report without even looking at him, and Dad proceeded to compare the two. He got no further than reading the titles of both before sister started bawling and confessing what she had done. Mom came flying to her aid to hug and kiss her, then chastised us for making her cry. Dad said she ripped off my schoolwork, and if the school found out, she'd have her grade revoked and would likely be punished, which made sister cry harder. Sister tearfully confessed that a few days earlier she went into Dad's office and looked through my old schoolwork files and found the book report. Then she just handwrote her own version of it that was almost identical and put the original back in the cabinet. After confessing, sister then ran to my dad and latched onto him while crying her eyes out and saying she'd never do it again. I guess my sister's tears made my dad sympathetic because he said that he wouldn't tell the school that she had cheated, but she was still grounded for doing it, and he expected better from her from then on. I was mad, but my dad told me there was no use since sister had already been graded on the report and no one noticed. This just made Mom give me an evil smirk, like she was saying, "Ha! I win," because she never enforced sister's groundings while Dad wasn't home. Then Dad took me upstairs and assured me from now on he'd make sure this didn't happen again by keeping better control of his files. Sister didn't get off completely scot-free though. That Sunday, Dad took me out for ice cream and a trip to the mall, but not her. Sister was screaming and begging to come with us, but Dad told her she didn't deserve it for copying my book report. So in essence, it was my grade and not hers, so I'd be getting the ice cream. That made Mom say she'd go out and buy her a tub of whatever ice cream she wanted, but sister just cried it was not the same and then ran to her room to scream and pout. That was the best ice cream I'd gotten all year. The following week, my dad got some brand new file cabinets with better locks on them, so nobody could get into them anymore but him. And for those who may be wondering why the teacher didn't notice the book report was the same, my old teacher I had back in 5th grade moved on to another school by the time I was in 6th grade, and since it was elementary, it wouldn't surprise me if copied book reports slipped through the cracks there on many occasions. There are a lot of students to keep track of after all. I told my daughter that we're only paying for 4 years of college and she's not happy about it. My wife and I are well off and we're very grateful for it. We have 4 kids and this is about our 3rd kid, Bella. We have a rule for college, and the rule is that you need to get your degree in 4 years. We will pay for it, and if you graduate earlier, we'll give you extra money for your own use. For example, my oldest graduated in 4 years and had no debt. My second oldest graduated early. They took summer classes, and we gave him money that he is using for a down payment on a home. If they're doing a 5-year program, we will pay, but if they leave that program for a normal one, then it goes back to 4. Now Bella has changed her major twice already, and she's a junior right now. She told us that she's changing her major again. I reminded her that we're only paying for 4 years. This is where we got into an argument. She's upset that we won't pay even though we have the cash. My argument is that we had already told her and we're not going to change it now. By the end of it, she called me an unsupportive parent/jerk and says that I'm having her go into debt for pursuing her passion. Am I the jerk? She won't talk to me at the moment. This is your daughter we're talking about. If you can afford it, you should pay. I'm going with everyone sucks here. I don't understand how anyone could just let their kid drown in debt just because she's not sure about her future. I feel sorry for her. I know stressing over money and debt while my parents are well off enough to have helped would hurt me. Also, why would her siblings be upset? It isn't about them. They already got everything they need and more, and less time too. Good for them. What does your wife think? Why is Bella changing majors again? Has she shown that she's not applying herself or that she's a good student? Because she changed her major doesn't mean she won't have enough credits to graduate. She will have bigger workload, but that doesn't mean she can't do it. She should speak to an advisor. I don't think you're a jerk because you reminded her, but it seems like the priority should be Bella finds success and is happy with her degree choice. She can still get this done in 4 years. If money is your priority, then Bella needs to understand how she can either graduate on time or how much it will cost her for loans. Maybe she won't switch her degree. No jerks here. OP. My wife is annoyed with her. She's a B student for the most part. She didn't like what she is doing, so that's why she's changing. She won't have enough credits since she needs to make up for the sophomore classes for the new major. She is literature right now, and she's jumping to data collection. You're the jerk. Don't be surprised when your daughter goes no contact with you. Why do rich people who can afford to pay for their kids' college insist on being selfish and greedy with their money? Did you decide to bring your daughter into the world? Yes. So then why are you cheaping out on paying for her college education? You as parents owe your kid at least a college education as the bare minimum. The bar is set so low, yet parents will always find a way to fail their kids. If you loved your daughter, you would have no problem paying for her education, no matter what, even if it means taking out loans for her because that's what a good parent would do. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
I think that last commenter's got more issues than Time magazine.
Am I the jerk for asking my husband to not eat lunch at night? We're a one-income family. We have a 10-year-old and a baby who's under 1. I don't and can't work due to health and chronic pain issues. My husband works full-time, usually 35 to 40 hours a week. When I cook dinner, I make enough so my husband has leftovers to take to work the next day. He has the habit of eating what's supposed to be in his lunch as a large nighttime snack before bed. We have plenty of stuff he can snack on or heat up that's not his lunch for the next day. Then he ends up eating out instead, and he hates fast food, so he spends $20 to $25 on lunch each day that he eats his lunch as a snack. This adds up and makes money tighter for us. I get it's his income, but it's affecting the entire family. I've asked him to not eat his lunch as a snack, but he says he loves my cooking and can't help it, and I should feel complimented he enjoys it so much. But I also like knowing that our bills will all be paid and we can afford gas, groceries, household supplies, and stuff for the kids without being in the red each week. Am I the jerk? Edit. If I make more for dinner, he will have third or fourth helpings. I do the grocery shopping and I try to get everything I can on his snack list. He will still eat his lunch as a snack. Hubby is a recovering gambling addict and currently owes $100,000 in back taxes that I'm trying to also budget to pay towards each month. He currently works in retail, making around $40K a year. He has a master's in economics and used to make $200,000, but some bad decisions in life messed that up and he ended up in legal trouble and can no longer work in his former industry. Not the jerk. Having been in this position, the only thing that worked was sitting my husband down and actually showing him the numbers. Say he's eating out 3 times a week. That's $60 to $75 per week, or $240 to $300 per month, $2,800 to $3,600 per year. Girl, that's a family vacation that he's eating. That's a full month's or more rent or mortgage, simply because he won't save dinner leftovers for lunch and stop eating out. Lay out the actual cost of his snacking and give him a reality shock. It might help put things into perspective for him. Good luck. And also, why can't your husband make something for his lunch if he's eaten the leftovers at night? This right here, he has the impulse control of a kid, so he eats the yummy things at night. So why isn't he then taking something else for lunch instead of wasting their money buying lunch? There are a decent amount of people in this thread expecting OP to cook more and portion it out and hide it away to deal with him being selfish. Why is he allowed daily takeout they can't afford, but OP isn't? There is absolutely zero reason he should be eating out with that much debt owed. Also, he should learn some self-control. All these suggestions of portioning out 2 meals, just no. This grown man needs to learn to restrain his impulsivity and leave his homemade lunch alone. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for not wanting to name my baby after my late mother-in-law? I'm 5 months pregnant with me and my husband's daughter, and we can't agree on a name for the baby. Like, we can't even sit down and make a list of names to consider. My husband keeps insisting that he wants our daughter to be named after his mom. Her fake name was Mildred, so our daughter would get bullied for having an old lady name, since that's just how kids are and will always be. He keeps saying we can just call her Millie and would still be on the roll call as Mildred. Not only that, but Mildred was horrible to me. She was sweet as sugar around everyone, but as soon as it was the two of us, she was the cruelest person imaginable and made it abundantly clear that she despised me. I don't want to name my daughter after a woman who hated me from day one. My husband has never believed me when I told him how Mildred treated me and thought that it was just a normal thing for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to disagree and that I was just over-exaggerating. He and Mildred were very close. He visits her all the time, calls all the time, everything. Towards the end, he'd visit her multiple times a week in the hospital, usually for hours at a time. He'd go straight to her after work and stayed until he was told to leave. Her passing really took a toll on him, so I understood that he wants to honor her, but I can't ignore how she treated me when he wasn't around. I feel like I'm losing my mind. My husband doesn't want to call our daughter anything but Mildred, and I want to call her anything other than Mildred. Am I the jerk? Edit. My husband won't compromise. He doesn't want Mildred as a middle name. His reasoning is that no one cares about middle names, and that since it won't be in her first name, it won't really be honoring her. At least not enough, since Mildred is our daughter's grandmother and not a great aunt or something. Not the jerk, but your husband is for denying your feelings. Here's a question I haven't seen yet. Did your mother-in-law even like the name Mildred? OP. She liked everything the old-fashioned way, so I'd assume so. I never asked if she liked her name. She passed a few years back, before me and my husband seriously considered if and when we wanted to have kids. I would die on this hill, as Mildred is an ugly and old-fashioned name. The fact he doesn't believe you about how she treated you alone is a huge red flag, and honestly, I would give your husband a wake-up call and let him read all the comments. Please tell your husband it is not normal for a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law to always argue or disagree. Most well-adjusted people understand boundaries and try not to overstep, apologize when they do, and try their best to get along. He sounds like he was a mama's boy, and it was her passing that finally cut the strings. I would bet he never supported you when disagreements occurred. If you're willing to agree to Mildred as a middle name, he should be happy. It's an old-fashioned name, and teachers often call out kids by their full name, at least at first. This is a hill I would die on. You had a bad relationship with her. That name is just off your list, so it cannot be considered. Not the jerk. Update. We found a compromise. It took me having to track down an ex to tell him that Mildred wasn't all sugar and spice and everything nice, but he finally understood and we had a long talk. He still wanted to call the baby Mildred, but agreed it was a little too old. We compromised on Amelia, with Millie for short, so that there's still an homage to Mildred as they were very close. I'm ready to pop and we're happier than ever. Unsatisfying Redditor updates. What the heck? Why does X's thoughts have more validity than his wife's? I understand that it helped her case with the name, but major marinara flags all around. OP's husband doesn't have respect for her. Today I messed up by stalking my husband's Reddit account. When we met and the entire 3 years we dated before we married, I was always firm about not wanting kids. My husband told me that his stance on kids was along the lines of kind of undecided, but overall not a good idea. Always said he used to want kids, but changed his mind later in life. I wholeheartedly believed him until I decided to snoop. We're both pretty avid Reddit users, and he wanted to brag to me about how many upvotes one of his comments had. I watched him as he clicked on his profile to find it, and I caught his username and a glimpse of another comment where it looked like he was talking about me. We've never tried hiding each other's accounts from one another, so it's not like his was secret, but I still feel a little bad for letting curiosity get the best of me. I looked up his username later in the day to check out what he had to say about me. To his credit, he was gushing about me, and it was really sweet. But quite a few of his other comments also talked about how he wished he could have kids of his own, and that the only thing stopping him is me. Talks about how his desire to be with me outmatches his desire to have kids, but he's still heartbroken that he can't have both. I still don't know what to make of it. On one hand, I'm hurt that in the almost 10 years we've been together, he's never talked to me about this, and instead lied to make it seem like we were on the same page. I feel immense guilt that I've taken such a choice away from him, especially after reading about just how badly he wants it. On the other hand, and I can't believe I'm about to type this out, it's making me rethink my stance. For the first time in my 32 years of existence, I'm uncertain about whether I want kids or not. I've always thought pregnancy and birth sounds like a nightmare, and I simply don't have the mental bandwidth to devote all of my time to raising a kid. But suddenly I'm having daydreams about it all. Just last night, I fell asleep while thinking about what would happen if my birth control failed, and we decided to just roll with it instead of getting rid of it. Every argument I try to come up with against it is easily refuted by how our life is currently going. We own a house, we both have good jobs that pay well, and I work from home on my own schedule, so we wouldn't have to worry about daycare or extended maternity leave. The fact that I'm even reconsidering is absolutely terrifying. What if I think on it for another year, decide to go for it, and then regret it? What if I'm only thinking about it now because I want to make him happy? What if I decide to ignore these thoughts and later regret not trying before we get too old? What if he thinks he wants me now, but later resents me for not letting him live the life he's always wanted? I regret looking into his Reddit account. I wish I could go back to a few days ago where this wasn't on my mind and I thought things were going great between us. I'm sorry if this isn't as interesting as "today I messed up by hooking up with someone's mom" or whatever usually gets popular. I just needed to get all of this off my chest. To address a few things I've seen mentioned by you guys. 1. Don't worry, I'm not throwing out my birth control tonight and jumping straight to baby making. I'm honestly still leaning more into the not having kids side. And if my mind changes more, it's still not happening until we both want one without a shadow of a doubt. 2. Just talk to him, communicate. I appreciate the concern, but keeping it to myself forever was never an option for me. Our communication is usually fantastic, and I'm planning on sitting down with him. I was just panicking a bit while writing this and wasn't sure the when, how, or how I'd like to share it with him. 3. Why do you think doing the same thing he did will solve your problems? You know what? You got me there. I'll probably show him this post eventually anyway, so I'm not sure how much water these comments hold. But you may be right that I shouldn't have shared this with strangers on the internet. I will say though, I kinda get why people do it now. To quote one of my own comments, it's like having a sea of little angels and devils on your shoulder, which to be honest is a little cool and almost cathartic. Update. Okay, I started out by saying, don't freak out, this isn't anything super serious, it's just me being classic Jane. I then went on to explain that I was extremely sorry for invading his privacy, but that I looked up his account and read some of his comments, and he interrupted me by laughing. He didn't just laugh, he saw what a wreck I was, and he had the audacity to guffaw loud enough to startle me. He then said, "So, that was you." You guys were right, he found my original post. I feel silly for thinking he wouldn't, but I figured it wouldn't get as popular as it did, and between him spending most of the day at work instead of on Reddit and saying he wasn't a fan of subreddits like these, that he would somehow miss it. In my defense, I had changed enough details about our lives that he wasn't totally sure until I told him I found his account. But yeah, he had his suspicions. He set me down at this point and basically said, "I know you well enough to know you don't actually want kids. This is just a phase." I won't go into details because it's pretty personal, but he presented his arguments for why he thinks that, and he is 100% right. He then followed up with, "I don't think you interpreted what I wrote correctly." He doesn't want to share his account with everyone, so I won't copy and paste the comment. But when he wrote that he loved me more than he wanted to have kids, he didn't mean that he was giving up that life just to make me happy. He meant that being with me completely changed his outlook. Us being together meant that we could travel anywhere we want together, have romantic dates where we stay out as late as we want, do things at 4 a.m. without having to worry about being too loud or waking anyone up. He realized that he doesn't want kids when he married me because he didn't want to share our life together with anyone else. When I asked him why he said he felt heartbroken that he couldn't have both, he explained that he didn't articulate that comment very well. He wasn't necessarily heartbroken that he could never have kids of his own, but rather he was grieving the loss of his imaginary kids and a mentality he held on to for his entire life up until he changed his mind. I imagine it felt a little bit like my freakout in the original post where I was scared and confused. Anyway, everything went smoothly, and we decided by the end of our conversation to stick without having kids, but we'll regularly check in with each other about in case we ever change our minds. I went to serve in the military for 1 month and came back to find my girlfriend had changed. For context, OP lives in Turkey. Normally, military service is 6 months, but there was a law passed in 2019 that allowed for 1 month service with a payment of 31,000 Turkish lira, about $1,130 US. Me and my girlfriend have been dating for 2 years. I was planning to propose in the next 3 months, and I was extremely sure that she was going to say yes, as we've been planning our lives together. She was hinting that I should propose by sending me cheeky proposal posts, signaling that she wants an engagement ring on her finger, and she sometimes would say, "when we get married." We lived together. Admittedly, we started fast and rushed into things. We started living together a month into our relationship. We've been living together ever since. She was always so loving with me. This is the best relationship I've ever had. She always made me feel loved, cared for, and even if she is somewhat selfish by nature, she always put me first. And she loves me very much, and I love her very much. I have been the perfect boyfriend. I kept taking her out on dates, giving her gifts, helping her around the house, solving her problems, and giving her affection and care. We never fought, not even once. But then things changed. I had to go and serve in the military for a month. She dropped me off at the bus station, kissed me, hugged me, cried, said that she loves me and would miss me a lot, etc. While I was in the military, she sent me texts saying how much she missed me and how she cared for me a lot, speaking in a loving manner. After about 4 days though, she stopped. During the month, we barely spoke, and only when I called. She sent me 20 texts at least. When I came back, she came to welcome me. She was very distant. She didn't even seem happy that I was back. Everything felt so off about her. We went back to our home, and I asked what was wrong and why she was acting this way. We spoke about it for hours, and she said that during my absence, she realized that she had too much love and wanted to cool off a bit. She said we rushed into things and she wants me to move out as she was not ready for this kind of life where we live together. She said that she wanted to live a little and not do everything together. She wanted to go on dates with me and experience the things we haven't experienced because we immediately moved in together. She wants to go out and have fun on her own too, and she wants the space for herself, her own order of things. She's studying medicine and she's in her last year, and she wants to focus more on that too. I said, okay, I'll move out, but I don't feel like this explains her being so distant. I asked if there was somebody else, and she said no. She said that she only wants to live her life like a 24-year-old and not a 30-year-old. I don't keep her from dressing the way she wants to, and I don't get jealous when she goes out with her friends, but I understand that me being there 24/7 can make her feel burnt out. She said she loves me and wants to keep working on the relationship and everything will be better for us this way. But I kind of feel icky about this. I feel like our relationship is dying. Everything changed so fast, and she doesn't even say I love you back when I say it. I feel like there's a distance between us all the time. I got a house and I'm moving out tomorrow. I canceled my plans to propose, and I'm ready to take it slow like she wants to. I feel like this can break us though. Can our relationship survive this? Why can this happen? What's the outlook? You were absent for a month, which could have triggered some abandonment wounds and left her feeling like she needs to focus on being there for herself. It isn't your fault. It sounds like she's still figuring out how she feels. Give her time, treat her kindly, and have compassion. She just went through a lot. OP. That's another possibility. The month of me being absent coincided with the start of her internship, during which she was extremely busy, would never eat, even had a patient die in her care. It seems to me her affection and sweetness is coming back, and I hope everything stays well. Whether there's someone else or not, she's making it clear she doesn't want to be with you. She's just trying to be nice about it by saying you can still work it out. Take the hint. Move out and move on. It sucks for a 2-year relationship to end, but life goes on, and I promise you will meet someone else even better at some point. It's better to end things in 2 years instead of being in an unhappy relationship for 10 years. You're in a relationship for 2 years. You go away for a month of military training. After 4 days of your absence, she realizes she's been making a mistake with you for the past 2 years and wants to revert to the early stages of dating. While you're going through what I'm assuming is stressful training, the communication slows to a trickle. My friend, this is a tale as old as time. I'm a senior non-commissioned officer in the US Army, and I'm here to tell you there's a significant likelihood Jody got your girl. Who's Jody? Jody is the person who messes around with your significant other while you're gone. Jody's gender is irrelevant. Sometimes Jody has been waiting for the opportunity to pounce, and sometimes your significant other has been waiting for an opportunity to open the door for Jody. Many soldiers get the Dear John letter while they're in initial training or deployed away from home, and Jody is often a catalyst in the significant other's decision to end things. It could be worse. Sometimes your significant other empties your bank account and lets Jody drive your car and use your stuff. It's entirely possible that there's nobody else, but I'll bet $1 she starts dating another person in less than 45 days. Maybe she'll tell you she doesn't want to be exclusive anymore. Maybe she won't. Update. She said, I love you, unprompted, the evening of the day that I made this post. I thought this was my go sign, and I started up a conversation about our relationship. It was a really good talk. She was honest and I could feel it. I will be honest with you too. To address the obvious thought everyone had, I thought she could have cheated as well, but nothing like that happened. She has made it clear that she didn't cheat in a respectable, clear way and tone, and I'm convinced she didn't. I trust this without any doubts now. Although all of the comments about Jody made me laugh, I needed a good laugh. This being a soft breakup was my other concern. I asked her if she considered breaking up with me, and she said the thought came into her mind, but she didn't want to as she loves me and was sure that she would love the future we will have. She didn't want a life without me. I asked if me moving out will eventually lead to a breakup, and she said she doesn't think it will, that she thinks it will only make us stronger. The problem was, as it turns out, that I went from being a happy person to someone who was worrying and depressed. She only realized this was the case when I was gone, and I wasn't around to spread negativity anymore. She said that she fell in love with me because I was happy and eccentric. She mentioned that while I was doing things that a good boyfriend would do, she felt I was doing them out of duty, and that I used to be very excited about buying her flowers. But lately, when I came home with flowers, I didn't celebrate this small occasion with her. I just gave them to her and went to bed. I admit, I have been very sulky these past few months. I was always worrying about my career, finances, and not being able to accomplish my future goals. I had already realized this while I was serving and worked through it myself. I think I'm in a better place now, and she says she saw that I am. Her solution to this was me moving out. My negative energy, I wasn't aware it was so contagious, wouldn't affect her anymore. Because it did, and she already has a lot to worry about. She needs a positive attitude to stay strong, and I was making that harder. She also realized that we were too codependent and too much in a routine. She thought me moving out would solve this. I agree. We both were very independent people at the start, but then we got lost in love. I was always waiting for her to come home, and she was always waiting for me to do anything. This ordeal made life somehow stale. She realized that because I did so much for her, she became heavily dependent on me to solve her problems, making her feel weak and incapable. Because of this reliance, she even had a hard time paying the bill, and this got to her. She missed her old self, the one with confidence and power. I realized that I lost myself too. I was a social person who commonly took the initiative to do something, with a lot of flash and crash in my life. I lost that. I lost friends, and I lost my active lifestyle. She wants to go out with her friends and not include me in everything. She wants to not worry about the things she says while with friends because I might be uncomfortable with it. She wants to sometimes take long walks alone. She doesn't want to ask me every time she wants to buy something. She doesn't want to feel guilty when her day-to-day plans don't include me. A problem some of you may have big issues with. She admitted that she received flirtatious male attention when doing her internship at school. I wasn't surprised, as she is very good-looking and with a feminine personality to boot. She says she would never cheat on me and didn't want to respond to anything. Never considered anyone else but me in her life, but she liked it. She enjoyed the ego boost, and that made her feel guilty. Guilty that she could like such a thing while I was away facing hardship. I said it was normal to like attention from the opposite gender, especially when you're lonely. I appreciated that she immediately tried to shut down advances and stayed committed and loyal to me. I don't think this will be a problem, and she looked very relieved when I thought it wasn't a big deal. In the end, she said that she missed the old me, the one that was happy and excited. Look, y'all need to break up, dude. Just, come on, man. Come on. This really bothers me. I'm glad you both worked it out, but I hate the way she treated you. Instead of talking to you, she became cold and distant. That's awful. Instead of being there to support your emotional issue about concerns of your life, she asked you to move out. That's awful. Instead of just saying, let's hang out without each other and with our own respective friends, she asked you to move out. The better solution is to just do those things she's bothered by. There's no reason she can't go out with her friends without you. There's no reason she can't just pay a bill. You're far too trusting, and she's out of touch with herself at best. You don't move out your long-term partner, enjoy the attention of others, and admit you want to hang out with friends without thinking about what you're saying, respecting your partner, because you want to work on your relationship. You both are just drawing out your breakup pretty clearly. She just wants to be single. I just hope she has the integrity to end things if she comes to that realization herself, instead of messing you around or becoming manipulative. OP. I can see how it's not positive, but at the moment, I think I'll ride this out. I'll be prepared if it doesn't work out, but currently we're okay and I love her. That's reason enough. People are saying that she'll cheat on me and she wants to live the single life. I don't think so. I was supposed to move out today, but she asked me to stay. Of course you're right. She didn't support me during a time where I needed support the most, but I can see her perspective. When I did go through a tough time, she was with me. She did support me then. She really made an effort, which is why I can understand she could be tired of the whole thing when I was away. If we do break up, that's fine. I'm a young man and I can handle some heartbreak if it comes my way in the future. No reason to abandon someone you just love to avoid that. If we don't, that's amazing. But I want to work on this, and as long as she does too, Hopefully, we'll end up building a better relationship for the both of us. Karen demanded I be fired for being polite to a homeless couple. A few years ago, around midnight, I had a guest come up to the front desk, a woman and a girl who was around 4. The woman told me there were a couple of people sleeping in the back staircase. I told her I would take care of it, and I apologized if she was inconvenienced, and she went back to her room, or so I thought. I went to the back staircase, and there on the second floor was an older homeless couple, either sleeping or napping. So despite feeling bad, I woke them up and told them that they couldn't sleep here and they would have to leave. They apologized and thanked me for not yelling at them about it, and they went on their way. I thought the issue was dealt with and went back to my duties. The rest of this I heard secondhand from my morning coworker. Apparently, the woman that told me of the homeless couple was at the top of the stairs listening and watching, and in the morning she came downstairs to complain about me. She didn't approve of the way I handled the homeless people. I told my morning coworker about what had happened so he'd know I wasn't mean or nasty or anything. So what was I supposed to do? Grab them by the ears and throw them out of the back door? Either way, she wasn't happy with the way I handled the situation, despite not giving an answer of what I should have done. And then she started adding other details onto it. She said they smelled like meds. Didn't say which ones. When I spoke to them, I didn't smell anything. She said she didn't like the way the man stared at them. If they were sleeping, how could he even have looked at them in the first place? And if he felt unsafe, why did you go near him? And then she started adding other things, not part of the homeless people. She said it was too loud by her room and she couldn't get to sleep. So coworker asked her why she didn't report it to the front desk. She didn't have an answer. No matter what my coworker said, she kept ranting and raving and demanding not only a full refund, but a free night stay and for me to be fired. Of course, none of that happened, and due to her attitude and the language she used, she was told to leave and she was put on a do not rent list. The kicker is, even after all of this, she still came back the next day and tried to rent another room, and she threw another fit when she was told that she was no longer welcome. Am I the jerk for leaving my family in squalor and going to a resort? So let's begin with this. I make decent money, but I'm in no way rich. I like to take my family on vacation and have been stymied for the last couple of years. So this summer, I decided to do something I thought was pretty great. I paid for my family to go to Disneyland. Not just my wife and kids, but also my father-in-law, mother-in-law, my wife's brother and his wife and kids. So 10 people. I also rented a McMansion with a pool and everything. I bought all the groceries and rented a truck so I could ferry the luggage, and in case of emergency, we would have a vehicle. My kids are in their teens, and my nephews are a few years younger. My immediate family did not require any help with the kids, and realistically, neither did my in-laws. So we get to the house and the problems start. The room I had picked out for my wife and I is obviously the nicest. My father-in-law and mother-in-law chose to stay in the pool house. This left 5 other bedrooms for 6 people. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law, my 2 kids, their 2 kids. Simple, right? Not so fast. Why did I get the best room? They hadn't had some nice time alone in years. Why did my kid get to pick the room with the en-suite? Why did one room have a bigger TV? Why are we having to cook some meals? Why don't we just order every meal? Goodness. I just went to my room and I went to sleep. First day, more BS. Why do we have to wait in lines? Why don't we get the tour guide that lets us skip the lines? My wife started joining in. She said we shouldn't be cooking at the house and that it wasn't fair to her and sister-in-law to be stuck with the cleaning. My kids always help. I do too. Brother-in-law doesn't lift a finger to help though. My in-laws joined the fun at the end of the day. They didn't want to wait for the Uber. Could they take the truck and meet us back at the house? My wife said to let them. I got sick of it. I ordered everyone pizza, and then while they were gorging themselves, I called an Uber and went to stay at a hotel that I'm a super shiny member of. I used my points to book a suite for the next 6 days. I texted my wife and I told her I would catch up with everyone in the morning at the park. She's mad that I left her to deal with those ungrateful, greedy people. I'm sitting in the pool enjoying a gin and tonic and writing this because I left the park after I saw the new superhero stuff at the park. Her brother and sister-in-law are now bugging her to give up the nice room since she's alone. Now she's not on their side. Too late. So, am I the jerk for leaving them to all sort out their own stuff after I went out of my way to do something nice and they crapped all over it? Edit. I'm going to get ready for the game. Thank you guys. You've given me a lot to think about. Yikes, edit. My wife went beast mode. She's spending the night with me at the hotel after the game. I'm back at the house tomorrow. My brother-in-law has been told if he looks at our room, he and his wife are going to a motel. In-laws were told to Uber wherever they wanted. We're still taking everyone out for one dinner, but all other meals not made in the house are paid for your own way. And brother-in-law is responsible for cleaning up after meals. Honestly, didn't think she had that in her. Not the jerk. This is actually hilarious. You took a vacation from your entitled relative's vacation. Well, maybe you should have warned your wife and brought her along and left the other relatives to figure things out for themselves. I can't even fathom someone sponsoring me for a free vacation like that and saying anything but, "Thank you so much. Let me get your suitcase for you. This is fantastic." Next year, tell them since the last vacation wasn't up to their standards, you're going to let them pay for this one and show you how it's done properly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the in-laws? Please let us know.
In-laws are to be avoided at all costs, especially when it comes to vacations.
My Karen wife is demanding I sell the business that I love. My wife, who's 35, and I, 42 male, have been together for 14 years. This year, after 9 years of university and residency, she is officially an MD, anesthesiology, which is why it took 9 years. I'm incredibly proud of her. Now, I'm a tuna fisherman and charter owner. I own 2 boats and licenses through my company. I bought the first license at 21, the second at 25. Both are now paid off. I make a very good living. I charge $2,000 for a day of tuna fishing per person, up to 5 clients per day from July 15th to November 15th, and I'm booked at least a year in advance. But the money, while obviously important, isn't the draw for me. This is truly my passion. It's the only job I've ever known, and I can't imagine my life without it. I left this year the first week of July, as I always do. But this year, my wife has started insisting that I start to think about selling the licenses and the boats because she feels it's time to start a family, and that since she's a doctor, I should sell them to stay home, raise our kids, and be home all year. I told her in no uncertain terms that I love her. I want kids with her, but I am not now or for the foreseeable future selling my businesses or giving up the business that I have loved since I first went tuna fishing with my father when I was 12. I would be miserable without it. Now I want to be clear. My wife has no power over my business. I got an ironclad prenup to protect my business and home and property before we got married. It doesn't protect our personal assets or accounts. She would be entitled to half of our savings. And it's not like my wife was hard done by. She didn't pay a penny for her education. I paid the bill to the tune of hundreds of thousands. I paid for our home, bought her a vehicle to travel to school with, so there's no financial mistreatment on my part. Her issue with my job is that I'm not home for 4 months a year. We live in Ontario, Canada, but my charter boats are on the southeastern shore of Nova Scotia, and that my job is dangerous. She knew both these things from our very first date. My wife is adamant that she wants this done, and it just isn't happening. She keeps saying how she'll be so busy as a doctor that she can't be home to raise the kids. But personally, I don't see how that's any different than my situation, aside from me actually having 8 months a year off. I'm not sure why she thinks that I should give up my dream job now that she has attained hers. Personally, I feel that she's ashamed to tell her new snooty work friends that I'm a fisherman, even though I make as much or more as they do, as this literally began as soon as she started her new job and started hanging around with a much higher class of people. A class of people that I'm not fond of, but I would never tell her who to have as friends. She denies this, but the way she suddenly altered her friend circle and started fighting with me about this as soon as she finished her residency and started her new job with her new friends tells me otherwise. She also has expressed interest in selling our property, 120 acres, to move to a condo in the city, and that's another area I just won't compromise. I did offer her that we could look at buying a condo and living there during winter, but I'm not selling my property. She also doesn't want to accept that. I'm willing to compromise, but this is my home and we can afford it. I'm not giving it up. When I'm not working, I'm hunting and fishing on this land. It's my favorite place in the world that isn't the Atlantic Ocean. I have no intention of retiring for at least another 25 years, and when I do, I plan to give the licenses and gear to my son from a previous relationship, and the reason I built this business to begin with. I never wanted my son to see me as a failure. He's 20 and is a mate on my second boat. My wife seems to think I'm a jerk because I want to be gone from her 4 months a year, and because with my investment portfolio and business worth multiple $1 million, I absolutely could retire and live well. I think she's the jerk, because she seems to think that I should be miserable in order to make her happy. I'm honestly not sure my marriage can survive this because there's absolutely no chance that I'm selling my business or retiring. But am I wrong here? Am I the jerk? I literally spent a decade making her life as easy as I possibly could. I'm in no way saying med school is easy, but she finished with no debt or responsibilities outside of the home. Few med students can say that. I also feel there's been a big change in the way she looks at me and my profession ever since she became a doctor. The profession that paid for her to get to where she is today. I am who I am, a country boy who had a dream to make a living doing something he loved. I feel like she feels that having a fisherman husband is embarrassing now that she's a doctor. There's 3 things I want to be clear about before people go there. 1. Nobody is cheating or suspects the other is cheating. 2. Never has there been any expectation that I would retire young. I never suggested it, and she never brought it up until these past few months. And 3. We can afford whatever help we would need to help with our future kids for the months I'm gone. But she doesn't want her kids to be raised by nannies. So Reddit, am I the jerk? If my marriage falls apart, is this my fault? Because this is weighing extremely heavy on me right now, but I don't feel I'm in the wrong in any way. Edit. So I wrote my wife a long email. No, this is not how we generally communicate, but she's on call and staying at the hospital. She called me back, quite upset, especially since I told her I felt she was ashamed of having a fisherman for a husband. After she stopped crying, she told me that this was absurd and definitely not the problem. And that while she hates me being gone for 4 months, that's not even why she's so upset. She can get through that part. She's worried about the danger associated with my job. My wife is risk averse. I've known that forever. I am quite the opposite. My dad raced dirt track, my mom skydived and wingsuited regularly, and I grew up on the water with multiple uncles who were lobster fishermen, snow crab fishermen, miners, and lumberjacks. My mom had 17 brothers and sisters, and yes, that's all one marriage. My grandmother birthed them all. I went back east every summer to fish. I love it. But she's not wrong, that with that comes the danger that someday I just won't be gone for 4 months. I'll be gone for good. I have the best of gear. Our boats carry rescue capsules, and us captains look out for each other, but accidents do happen. I've seen tiny communities devastated, losing 5 young men to the sea. I've done search and rescue and pulled bodies from the water. She said she's always been scared, but it's gotten worse these last couple of years. And apparently, her mom has been in her ear about it a lot. I love her mom, but she can definitely habitually press my wife on our future plans for family, probably causing her more stress than is fair. We're going to seek therapy as a couple, and for her personally, because she says she definitely doesn't want a divorce, and that she's never been ashamed of what I do and realizes what I've done for her. That's why she shot down the nanny suggestion, not because she was against it, but because she was irrationally trying to get me to bend to her out of fear. I also want her to get help with dealing with her mom from whatever therapist she chooses. She does want a place in the city, and I definitely understand that. She didn't seem to believe we could afford both. Downtown Toronto is expensive, and it's true she doesn't know my finances. Don't get me wrong, she realizes in rough estimates how much money the business makes, but my job also has major expenses. I assured her that between the 2 of us, we can afford a second home. I'll still have my hunting property and sanctuary, and she gets to be closer to the hospital and much better multicultural experience, which I know she enjoys. We're going to look at renting a place for a while, because the Canadian housing market is on the verge of collapse with interest rates as they are now. It's worth renting for a year or 2 to see if prices drop. I was clear with her that I don't plan to stop fishing for many years yet, but that when my son is ready, I will let him take up some of the work captaining my boat so that I'm at least home for a week here and there, at least until second boat captain retires at the end of 2025 and I give that boat to my son full-time. But we can figure that out later. Ending my 5-year marriage over a paternity test my mother-in-law requested. I don't know where to start. This whole situation is embarrassing and I'm just done with it. I've been with my husband for 5 years now, married for 3. Well, long story short, his mom was always overwhelming and bold with her input on everything, to put it nicely. I genuinely think it's not fair to be mad at your partner for something he didn't do himself. He can't control what his mom does or says. But what's also not fair is him not addressing it when I'm clearly uncomfortable or upset, and instead just talking me into brushing it off or going with it. I never, nor would I ever, have a back and forth with my mother-in-law. It's just not worth barking at each other. I always kind of brush it off if it's a snarky comment or if it's a better way to do something in her opinion. I'll just tell her thanks for the suggestion, but we're good. It's actually true, the saying, when you marry someone, you marry their family. I think the way to handle it is each spouse should keep his side of the family in line, for lack of a better way to say it. I deal with my parents and their shenanigans, and I expected him to do the same. He never did. He always asks me to give her some grace. Well, it's hard when that person is insulting you. For a while now, she's been making comments about how my son doesn't look like my husband when he was a toddler, basically accusing me of sleeping around. This definitely upset me. Sorry, my genes are strong. What do I tell you? I was short with my husband because he didn't address how out of pocket and disrespectful this whole thing is. It's been a week since my husband, well, soon-to-be ex-husband, told me that he would be doing a paternity DNA test, not because he thinks that it's not his son, but to shut his mom up. Yes, that's what he said. I don't know which one is worse, him accusing me of cheating or this crap, but all I know is this is audacious. I didn't cheat, and I'm not concerned one bit about the test results. I wasn't going to stop him from taking a DNA test or whatever, but I just know that I don't want to deal with this any longer. I'm looking for an appointment, and I've talked to a lawyer the day after he brought up the DNA test, and I've been acting more than normal since. We'll be getting the results in 2 days. I can't wait. He will also be getting divorce papers with that too. I know for a fact he won't even see it coming. I tried my best to make this whole thing work and manage my relationship with my mother-in-law as gracefully as possible. But thinking about it, it's not just my mother-in-law that's the problem, but how he's handling things that's also a problem. And side note, I've never been more glad that I didn't leave my job when I got married. He makes more than enough to take care of the financial side of things. I thought I would get bored. I only have to be on site 2 days per week. Also, I really love my job and the company, so I didn't leave. Best decision I ever made. He is unreliable to say the least. I know that divorce can be hard on kids, but I experienced the other side, living with 2 parents that hated each other and fought almost all of the time. It was hard. They thought that staying together would be good for me and my siblings. Newsflash, it wasn't. It was horrible to say the least. I either read somewhere or maybe my therapist told me that when you fight with your spouse, you shouldn't see it as me versus you, but more like me and you versus the particular situation or problem on hand and try to figure it out. But it's really hard to do so when you start hating that person. I don't want my son to live like that because I just can't stand my husband anymore. I don't know if this is a weird way of saying it, but I just don't respect him anymore, if that makes sense. I just see an unreliable man, and I know for a fact that our fights won't be the same as before. I would have said what a waste of 5 years, but I have a sweet and smart gremlin now, and having a kid really pushes you to be a better person and to do better, so I can't complain. Update. I have a comment about my last post. Please, if you're going through something serious, think twice before posting it. Obviously, I was expecting people to tell me I'm overreacting, or even that I'm a jerk. But there are also people who would leave you with comments like, "You're a disgusting jerk. I hope he takes your kid away from you during the divorce and you realize what kind of monster you are," and go on about their day, which was my cue to stop reading comments that night. The day he was supposed to receive the results, I called my father-in-law and invited them to come over that evening. He was working when he got the results. He sent them to me and told me that he would talk to his mother to finally put this to rest. I informed him that I had already invited them for this evening, and I'm just waiting for my apology before I leave. I asked that he come home so we can talk before they come over. He called, and I basically told him that this is not working for me anymore. I've already talked to an attorney, filed for divorce, and it might be more expensive than a paternity test, but it would be more effective making his mother happy. And no, I don't care that he was working when I told him. I don't think you would have either. He left work and came home. Long story short, we had a spectacular fight. He said that I'm not thinking about my son and I'm overreacting because it's not like he went behind my back. And if he knew that I was this upset, he wouldn't have done it. But he knew. We fought about it when he brought it up. He just didn't care. When I gave him the divorce papers, he said he's not signing anything and he'll ask his mother to apologize when his parents arrive and get done with this. Listen, I don't need him to sign it to get a divorce. It would only make things complicated, but that's it. His mother said she has nothing to apologize for. She wouldn't apologize for having suspicions. She didn't accuse me of anything, and I can leave if I want to. So that's that. I did leave that night because I wasn't going to get an apology, and he didn't seem to understand that him reinforcing that it's okay for her to meddle is why I want a divorce in the first place. He eventually told his parents he'll be coming over from time to time to check up on them. He's their only kid, and not to bother coming over anymore until she apologizes. She wasn't amused. She told me I'm taking her son away. She's not someone that you can talk to, I'll tell you that much. It's like talking to a brick wall. All she knows is insulting or being passive-aggressive on a good day. We're not getting a divorce. We talked the day after. He said I can always file for a divorce, but we should at least try couples counseling because he doesn't want to co-parent. Edit. He doesn't want to lose his son, plain and simple. Although it's not like if we were to get divorced, he wouldn't be able to see him, but whatever. He did say, when we talked the second time, that he can now see that he was wrong, especially knowing his mother. He also mentioned that he'll just shut her down if she meddles this time. But what can I do with just words? I hope he can learn a thing or two on how to deal with his mother in counseling because she's truly overwhelming. If counseling would help him understand that a couple means two people, not three, and our marriage is a bit crowded right now, then that's enough for me. People saying that I'm overreacting in my last post made me ask myself, do I actually want a divorce or am I just mad? I wanted the divorce at the time. It seemed like the only solution. But if counseling would help us, I can try to work things out. I hope this is a good decision. If not, I am not stuck. I'll take my son and leave. I have a friend who got divorced in 20 days. When you're on the same page regarding how things would be divided, including custody, it's a matter of how long the court would take to review and finalize the divorce, and you'll be done. That was my plan. Nonetheless, I'm the one working from home, and my son is still so young. It's totally up to him. If he wants to see his son every day when he gets off work, or if he wants to see his son just a couple of times per week, because I'm not tolerating this anymore. Oh, one last thing. People in my last post were debating if paternity tests should be mandatory or not. I thought that from what I wrote, it was clear I didn't cheat and I have nothing against paternity tests. It should be obvious to everyone that it's not fair for the kid nor the man to be tricked into living a lie. If he was the one who had suspicions, that's a big deal. We would have talked about why he thinks that, taken the paternity test for his peace of mind, and made sure we can trust each other before moving on, all without anyone interfering, let alone requesting it. Am I the jerk for telling my son he needs to live with the consequences of ignoring what his kids were saying? My son lost his first wife when their two kids were preschoolers. My grandson is now 17 and my granddaughter is almost 16. Their relationship with my son has been on a downward spiral for years. It started when he and his current wife moved in together. She had two kids of her own, and early on they showed extreme jealousy whenever their mom would pay any attention or buy anything for my grandkids. They were older, teenagers, and said a number of cruel things to my grandkids. My grandkids told my son, they told my wife and I, and we spoke to our son, but he ignored all four of us. My wife also spoke to my son's second wife prior to the wedding, and she said her kids would adjust in time. My grandkids spent years living with two much older kids who said all kinds of mean stuff to them that they shouldn't have been saying. They accused them of stealing from them because their mom shouldn't be doing anything for them. They accused the younger kids of stealing from them because their mom shouldn't be doing anything for them. There were incidents where they broke the stuff their mom bought my grandkids. My wife and I pleaded with our son to do something to help his kids. We said they didn't deserve to be raised like that. The problems continued even after the older kids moved out. They still expressed a lot of jealousy and hatred for my grandkids. I never interacted much with my son's stepkids. I saw them a handful of times over the years. My son has been married to his current wife. They would mostly go to their dad if my son and his wife were spending time with us or any of our other kids. Or they would reject offers to spend time with us. But the few times I did see them, I was always shocked by how blatant their hatred was and how my son never appeared to care. One incident in particular stands out. It was my granddaughter's birthday and she got some art kit that she had wanted. It set off the two older kids who called her names, and they even broke part of the kit. My wife and I spoke up to our son and his wife, but they did nothing and said nothing. My grandkids now spend a lot of time with myself and my wife. They hardly speak to their dad despite living under his roof. They wanted us to get custody of them, but we were denied, so they have taken to doing their best to make it through the next 2 years. My son is only now starting to care that the relationship with his kids has been destroyed. He asked me why we tried to fight for custody of the kids when he's their dad, and he accused my wife and I of turning the kids against him. This is when I stopped him, and I said we didn't turn them against him. He's just living with the consequences of ignoring what they've been telling him. I told him he put them through years of bullying so he could get married and stay married, and now he has to live with his decision. My son ranted at me and said the last thing any parent should do is try to make their kid feel crappy about themselves, which is what I was doing. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Wow, the irony of your son suggesting that you are making him feel bad. What about how bad he's made his kids feel for years? The obliviousness of some people. Good luck helping those kids make it through the next year until they can both move out. One question, Did you take the time to tell your step-grandkids off? If you haven't, might I suggest you do that as soon as possible and in front of your grandkids? I bet they would really love to see that. OP. I never called them out. We hardly ever saw them, and we don't see them at all now. My girlfriend has one incredibly annoying habit that I cannot stand. Okay, this is gonna sound petty. I promise you it isn't to me. We've been dating for almost 2 years, and in almost every way, she's the one for me. I want to get married to her. However, I realize this sounds so petty, but for some reason it bothers me so much. She has the absolute worst restaurant etiquette. 1, she barely tips. We both have good jobs. Money's not a problem for her or I. We kind of take turns paying when we go out to eat. I normally tip 20%, maybe a little more or less depending on the situation. Over the weekend, she tipped $3 on a $46 bill. Sometimes I've tried to leave cash on the table, but she gets upset, takes it, and hands it back to me. We've only had a few fights, and almost every one of them have started like this. She's absolutely convinced that throwing a few dollars is more than enough. She gets all of this from her family. Her parents took us out last Christmas to a very expensive steakhouse. Her dad made an absolute scene and production of tipping $20 on a $500 plus bill because it's the holidays. 2, she sends almost every dish back. Something is always wrong with whatever she ordered. The hamburger is not done enough or done too much. There's dirt in the lettuce in her salad. The pasta isn't cooked enough. You get the idea. Every time. 3, she expects the waitstaff to be paying attention to her needs instantaneously. She's not necessarily verbally mistreating them, but she does keep making demands. Water or iced tea needs to be constantly refilled. We need more napkins. This fork is dirty, etc. If she's expecting or asking for something and that person isn't right there, she'll start asking me, loudly, where are they to get some attention? And 4, she argues over the bill every time, demanding to speak with the manager to have something taken off or reduced because she wasn't satisfied. It doesn't matter if it's Applebee's or the Capitol Grill. Never pay the full amount. I'm 100% sure this all comes from how her parents act in restaurants. I've seen them do this every time we've gone out to eat together. It isn't a money thing either. They're not struggling. It's to the point that I don't like going out to eat with her because I know what's going to happen. She's completely aware of how tipping is supposed to work, but insists that it's optional and to stop throwing money away. There's no other situation where she has this antisocial behavior except restaurants. I can't get my mind around it. Everywhere else, she's kind, reasonable, sweet person. But as soon as she's in a restaurant, she turns into this. How do I convince her that this type of behavior needs to change and is really bothersome and antisocial? I've tried explaining time and time again, and it goes in one ear and out the other. You need to tell her that if this behavior while dining out doesn't drastically change, that you'll no longer be interested in going out to eat with her anymore. I was in the service industry for over 10 years, and one of the things I look for in people, friends or partners, is how they treat others when they are in a perceived position of power. As the customer, you're technically in the power position because even if you're a jerk, your server has to be pleasant with you. Then we go back into the kitchen and talk about what a jerk you are. So she uses this opportunity where she has the upper hand to be absolutely terrible. This is a big deal, and I doubt you'll ever convince her otherwise. She does this because she thinks she's above those serving her. Petty? Dude, that's not petty at all. The fact that you know she's going to send food back before the food has even arrived is infuriating. I would start telling waitresses when you sit down, hey, just a heads up, my girlfriend will probably send the food back after it arrives and then demand a discount on the bill, so just be ready for that. If she really sees no problem with the behavior, then she shouldn't have any problem being open about it, right? I'm sorry, but your girlfriend is a bad person. I could never date someone like that. Edit. For everyone that says you shouldn't do this to people you date, totally agree. But we all have an in-law or two that acts like this, right? Maybe toss a log in the fire the next time you're out with a crappy family member that does this, and do this to them. If you think warning a stranger of your partner's behavior every time you go out is a good long-term solution, just end the relationship. This girl has so many red flags, they would be given special treatment on Twitter. I'm 27, male. My ex-girlfriend, who's 26, wants to try again. My ex-girlfriend and I first got together 6 years ago, and from day one, we got on like 2 peas in a pod. Then after 2.5 years together, she fell pregnant. We had spoken about kids before, and we both wanted a family, but not after just 2 years together. We spoke about it a lot, asked a few of our friends that already had kids, and eventually decided to go for it. We also agreed that even if our relationship doesn't last, our kids' well-being would always come first. Right before the lockdown in 2020, 3 weeks before the due date, we welcomed a perfect little girl and both of us were completely infatuated. It was a big adjustment, but our girl was an angel and we settled into parenthood rather quickly. Everything was going great at first, but 3 months later, it all changed. I was working late when I got a text from my mother saying that my girlfriend dropped our daughter off while she ran some errands, but 4 hours later she hadn't returned, and now she wasn't answering her phone. I called too, but she didn't answer me either. I got out of work, collected my daughter, and went home to find a note from my girlfriend. She said that she couldn't handle the stress of lockdown and the baby, and she just needed some time to clear her head. She also said not to call and that we would talk soon, but days turned to weeks with no contact from her or anyone else other than her sister who visited my niece often but never mentioned my girlfriend. Fast forward 3 years, and my ex-girlfriend is slowly starting to reach out again. It was slow at first, liking photos of our girl on Instagram and the odd comment, but that was it until last week. She sent me a text saying that she had seen how well our daughter and I are doing and asking if we could meet up. I was reluctant, but we agreed before our daughter was born that her well-being is what mattered the most, so reluctantly, I agreed to meet for a coffee so she can see our girl, but I'm having second thoughts. How do I forgive her for walking out on me, and more importantly, on our daughter? Update. As we agreed, my ex and I met up a few days ago in a local cafe, and I got there early to try and work out what I was going to say to her after 3 years. While I hadn't mentioned it in my original post, I had no intention of bringing our daughter along. My ex had contact numbers of my family members, so she was with a coworker. And when my ex arrived, she was a little disappointed, but not all that surprised to see that I was alone. The next few minutes mainly consisted of small talk before we eventually addressed the enormous elephant in the room, where she had been hiding for 3 years of our daughter's life. She admitted that she had suffered a lot with postpartum depression and she couldn't bear to show it in front of our girl. She acknowledged that leaving the way she did was wrong, but she wanted to be able to focus solely on herself while she got therapy. I asked why it took her 3 years to resurface. She sent a text for our daughter's first birthday, but that was it. And she broke down, admitting that she was so scared of what I thought of her for disappearing. In a way, she was right to be scared, because while I could come to terms with being dumped, I was furious because she left our daughter. Throughout our conversation, I could tell she's grown a lot as a person over the last few years, which is something. We spoke for well over an hour, and when I finally got up to leave, she asked where we stood. I told her that I appreciate that she's really been trying to turn her life around, but it's going to take time for me to fully move on. But as a show of good faith, I showed her a video of our girl. It's about 6 or 7 months old, but it's my favorite. It's her and one of my dad's cows mooing at each other. Just before I left, I got her phone number so we can maintain a bit of proper contact rather than through social media, and I agreed to send her a couple of pictures of our daughter. I appreciate all of the advice I got last time, and I'm wondering where my ex and I go from here. My hope is that we can coexist and maintain a healthy friendship for our daughter's sake, but after what happened before, it's hard to fully trust my ex. What do you guys think? Side note, 2 things I didn't mention to my ex. I have zero intentions of rekindling our relationship. I'm open to co-parenting if she can prove she's not going to pull another disappearing act, but that's it. I really loved her once, but I'm a different person now, and that ship has well and truly sailed. At one point, I considered putting our girl up for adoption. She was about 9 months at the time. I was mentally and emotionally drained. Work was stressing me out, and coming home to my daughter just didn't give me any joy as much as I love her. I was going through the process, but one night I looked in at her in her cot. She looked back at me, and the look on her little face, a cute little smile, and her blue eyes shining like I was her whole world. It told me that things would get better, so I canceled the adoption and never looked back. Update 2. So, down to business. Per my ex's request, I accompanied her to a session with her therapist, and she reassured me that she and my ex have made good progress, but she still has some issues to work through. Specifically, her relationship with her parents. She told me they separated and her mother had a temper, but I didn't know how bad it really was. After the session, my ex left and I hung on for a minute to ask her therapist for her opinion regarding reintroducing my daughter to my ex. She recommended holding off for now and offered me a free session to talk about it, so I'm going to see her next week. On a more positive note, my daughter started preschool 2 weeks ago and is already making friends and has been absolutely loving life. And I sent my ex a few photos of her to show some support, so things are looking up. Thanks again to everyone that has commented so far. The support that I've been getting is incredible. Makes the struggle of raising a kid alone a little better. My own daughter stole $62,000 from me. My wife and I are in the fortunate position of being wealthy. We had to work very hard to get to where we are, and we never forgot where we came from. Our kids grew up as rich kids, but we never spoiled them, even when we could have. They went to nice schools and had nice things, but they also had summer jobs and after-school jobs to pay for their own extras. We also push philanthropy in our family, so our kids recognize they are privileged and that our life isn't even remotely how regular people live. I'd say for the most part, our kids have grown up to be respectful and good people. Our oldest kids are twin boys, and their sister is 18 months younger than them. All three are in college now. Our youngest two are in 8th grade. I got a call from our bank a couple days ago saying that someone had cashed a check that was charged to our bank account in the amount of $61,347, and that the check had been made out to the tuition office at the university my oldest 3 kids attend. Naturally, I investigated the matter myself with the university, and I got some answers. I pieced together that one of my kids snagged my checkbook and wrote a tuition check for a friend of theirs. There's a much bigger story behind why this kid couldn't pay, but that's private, and my wife and I agreed to fund this young person's education because of their private struggles. I grilled my kids and figured out that it was our daughter, Joanna. Joanna was apologetic, but she was also quite insistent that she stood behind her actions. I respect my daughter for her convictions, and she really did have good reasons for why she did it. But the fact remains that she stole, and then she hid it from us. Joanna asked what her punishment is, and I told her to get a job because she now owes her mother and I $62,000. Here's the thing. I don't expect Joanna to pay us back, and if she came to me tomorrow with the money, I wouldn't even take it. What I want is to see her make an effort, an acknowledgement of her actions and the consequences. If I see that she's actively trying, I'll tell her that she doesn't have to pay me back. She's my kid, and I love her, so all I want is for her to learn a lesson. But Joanna doesn't know any of this. All she thinks is that she now owes me $62,000, so naturally I'm a horrible father and a very mean person. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I actually think you should follow through and expect her to pay it back in full. Same. Otherwise, she'll think from now on, oh, I just have to do what he wants for a couple weeks and I'll be good. My husband saw this post as well and thought of a good idea. OP lets the kid get a job and lets her pay him back for a year. Don't tell her it's just for a year, but at the end of the year, forgive the rest of the money. So she gets to spend a whole year learning the value of $1, as she clearly doesn't right now, and see how little a minimum wage job will even make a dent in that kind of money. And he can either keep the money or put it in savings for her for a later event. I think you're on spot for how you're addressing the sneaking, stealing, and lies. I'm sure you made it clear had she come to you and made a case for helping this person out, there would have been no consequence, but that the disciplinary action is a result of the dishonesty and the theft, not the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way they're punishing her or not? Please let us know.
I think this is what you call great parenting.
Am I the jerk for evicting our tenants of 22 years? Our son is 22 years old. When he was born, we bought a second home, always with the intention of gifting it to him when he was an adult. It's a modest home, 2-bedroom bungalow with a developed basement that has an additional room, about 10 minutes from where we live. When we bought it, we listed it for rent, and a lovely couple started renting. They went on to have 6 kids. They chose not to move and continued living in the 3-bedroom home with the kids. The dad works, the mom stays home. Important to note that we bought this home in the year 2000. Even with a 15-year mortgage, the mortgage was quite low, and the rent not much more than the mortgage. We've only raised the rent 4 times in the 22 years that they've lived there, and the rent is still well below average for our area. I did look it up. An average rent where we are for a similar house is $2,000 to $2,600 a month. Our renters have only been paying $1,300 a month. When they started renting, we did talk to them. We did tell them that this house was eventually for our son. We never actually expected to have the same renters for 22 years. Our son graduated university in June and has been staying with us since then. But he's a responsible young man, and we decided that Christmas would be a good time to gift him this home. At the beginning of September, we talked to our tenants and gave them a 2-month election notice, figuring we'd have November and December to get the house cleaned on any repairs done. Understandably, they are not happy. They've been posting all over social media about what bad people we are, kicking them out, how they can't afford to rent anything big enough for their family. Their oldest kid, who's 19, even found my son on Facebook and sent him a horrible message. He had no idea we were planning to gift this to him. Their Facebook posts have been shared in our local community groups, and everyone is commenting about what evil landlords we are. Am I the jerk for evicting long-term tenants so our son can move in? Edit to add. We did mention gifting the house to our son when he started university, so we told them when they moved in back in 2000 and when he started uni in 2018. Edit 2. It wasn't a legal eviction notice. We also didn't break the lease. 5 years ago, they decided not to renew as they thought they might buy soon and move to a month-to-month lease. Edit 3. It seems 2 months is not long enough notice. I have sent them an email giving them an additional 2 months, bringing it up to 4 months notice. Edit 4. I sent this to my husband. He told me when he was there in April installing a new hot water tank that he told them, well, the dad, that we'd likely be giving notice this summer. What kind of entitled nonsense is going on here where people are calling you a villain? All renters know that they aren't paying for their own mortgage and they have no entitlement to your property whatsoever. They're on a month-to-month lease. You're telling me that lease is ending. They should have saved up money for this. 60 days is a great deal of notice for people who told you years ago that they wanted to buy a house and didn't want to resign the lease. This BS about getting a house you didn't pay for is just a load of BS. You did. Your credit is on that house. You did the down payment, which is what allows the mortgage to be so low, and the home loan is in your name. Not the jerk. These comments are so entitled. Not the jerk. You literally gave them 22 years to prepare. How could you be the jerk? Everyone here saying you're the jerk is insane. You've been more than fair, even keeping them at a low rent. How could they say you're the jerk? You aren't responsible for providing them housing. Based on their actions, I would hold firm on a 2-month deadline. Had they been civil, I would have extended it, but they do not deserve it. You will be lucky if they don't wreck the house at this point. Everyone sucks here. It's your right to evict them, but I feel like 2 months is way too short notice given that they've lived there for 22 years, they have 6 kids and only 1 income. The holidays are coming up, and we're in a recession where inflation is insane. You only charge them about half of what rent is going to cost them anywhere else, so they're going to have to get a different job or another job to afford it, and the job market is horrible at the moment. That being said, they could have talked to you about being able to stay there longer until they can make arrangements to afford a similar house, but they chose to get on Facebook and be salty rather than do anything productive. ETA 2. The amount of y'all telling me it's not OP's responsibility, blah blah blah. First of all, learn to read, cause I never said it was. Second of all, do y'all live in caves and never interact with people outside of the internet? Must be the case if y'all have absolutely no sense of compassion. You can tell me I'm wrong till you're blue in the face, but you simply will not convince me that having compassion for others is wrong. Stay mad about it. My Karen wife demands I give my settlement money to her parents. 2 years ago, I suffered an accident at work and recently reached an agreement with the company. It was a huge amount. For example purposes, and to make it clear, these are not the real values. I received $100,000. I decided to divide it as follows. $30,000 for me, $30,000 for my wife, $25,000 for emergencies, and $15,000 for my parents. I'm the main breadwinner at home, and my wife and I split the bills 25-75. I don't know if this is important. Well, my wife wants me to divide the money I'm going to give to my parents in half and share it with my in-laws because it's money that would help them too. I refused, saying that this is money that is up to me to decide how to use it, and that if she wants to help her parents, she's free to use her own as she wants to. To be clear, her parents are financially stable, and my parents have absurd expenses because my father has several health problems, and basically this money would cover a year or 2 of his medicine. They're struggling financially even with my help monthly. She said that this money should be a joint decision and that I was being selfish in deciding its destination without listening to her. Reddit, am I the jerk? Extra, she and I are financially stable, childless, and this money is not needed to pay our expenses, so it will be used for other things. Not the jerk, but as a former insurance adjuster, I would assume that if you're not committing insurance fraud, but getting a large settlement, that you actually have some kind of substantial injuries which might require some sort of follow-up care in the future. Even if it doesn't seem like it now. In most cases, this is financial settlement. You're not getting more regardless of what might develop in the future. My vote? Don't give any of it away. Do the smart thing and put it in savings or an investment account. You're the jerk to yourself. That's blood money, not fun money. It's money to make up for your lost earning potential and any potential hospital bills as a result of that accident. I hope for your sake you have thought about your long-term financial position, including your new extra costs and loss of earning potential. Well, what do you think? Should OP divide the money with his in-laws or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for ending a family naming tradition? My family has always had this tradition where the firstborn, after the loss of someone in the family, gets the late family member's name as their middle name. My sister and I both have those middle names. Hers is Patricia, after a cousin of our mom's, and mine is Denise, after my dad's aunt. Almost a year ago, my sister lost her baby, Philip. He was the last family member we lost, and it was a huge blow to our family. I found out I was pregnant a few months ago. I waited a while to tell anyone, and my sister was the first person we told, privately. When I told her, she said it would be nice to have some positive news to focus on, and she wanted me to continue the tradition our family keeps and give my baby, if a boy, the middle name Philip. She was so happy about the idea. It surprised me a lot. I would have figured she would not be okay with it, but she wanted it. The problem is, my husband and I do not want to continue with the tradition. We do not want to give our son the middle name Philip. The name isn't one either of us likes or would ever pick ourselves. We have not announced the gender of our baby yet, but my husband and I know that we're expecting a boy. My family was saying how amazing it would be if my baby is a boy and Philip's name can be carried on. I suggested they wait until we announce the gender and the name before jumping to conclusions. They asked why, and I said we were thinking of not continuing the tradition. My family, and by that, my parents mostly, were really upset. My sister was the worst though. She asked why I wouldn't want to honor Philip and why it was him the tradition was being broken on. She asked if I saw him as meaning so little, and I said no, of course not. Then she asked if it was his name, and we didn't like it. She said she really hoped it wasn't that. I said we just didn't feel like the tradition was something that we wanted to continue. The decision has brought up a lot of bad feelings, and my sister is especially angry and thinks I'm being insensitive and showing how little I care for my nephew. I feel terrible. She's so angry at me, and my parents are unhappy as well. My husband hates them for putting this pressure on us. He said we should be allowed to name our son whatever we want to, and we should not be obligated to use a certain name. I never wanted to be a jerk, but my family believes I am. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You and your husband have the right to name your kid whatever you want. However, your family also has the right to be heard. Not only is this a tradition, but it's a tradition that honors people the family has lost. Keep in mind how rarely a middle name is actually used. Is this something you're willing to create a fight over? As you say, your husband hates your family for putting so much pressure on the name. OP. I wish it wouldn't be a fight, but I also know my husband would be unhappy if we use the name just to keep my family happy. We have both also considered if someone else in the family passes before we have a second, and then we're obligated to keep doing it. Not the jerk. It may be a tradition for your family, but it's not for your partner. This baby is both yours and your partner's, so it's up to both of you how you go about naming them. I understand your family's feelings, but these expectations that someone else who had nothing to do with deciding these traditions will just go along with it also seem too one-sided. Well, what do you think? Should OP continue the naming tradition or not? Please let us know.
Sometimes you have overbearing families and you gotta tell them to buzz off. This is between you and your husband.
Am I the jerk for refusing to take in my sister's kids after her partner had a stroke so that I can go on my planned vacation? My sister, 30 female, called me, 26 female, yesterday morning to tell me that her partner, who's 45, had been rushed to the hospital. She was in hysterics, and I stayed on the phone with her until she was able to make it to the hospital. She works, and her partner stays home with the kids. I do believe he's on some sort of disability or unemployment benefit though. Together, they have 3 kids who are 7, 5, and 2. Here's some background on me and my sister. We had actually not spoken for almost an entire year before her most recent call to me. We really have a strained relationship starting from our childhood, which was exacerbated by our parents. I'll be honest in saying that my parents always favored me and labeled my sister as a problem child. Since her teens, she's been making really poor life choices and doing things she shouldn't be. She graduated high school but dropped out of community college. Our strict, traditional Asian parents shunned her from their lives after she dropped out of college. They effectively disowned her and pretend that they never had an older daughter. My parents haven't spoken a word to her in almost a decade, and they have never met their grandkids. For the last decade, I tried to maintain a positive relationship with my sister, but she's betrayed my trust too many times to count, borrowing money and never returning it, stealing my items and pawning or selling them. bringing me into unnecessary drama in her life, etc. To be honest, I've been trying to distance myself from her for the last 3 to 4 years since she's caused me nothing but pain, stress, and suffering. Then last night, she called me again to let me know that her partner had suffered a severe stroke and had emergency surgery. The doctors say they are still very unsure of his prognosis. She then begged me to take in her kids for the time being, saying how she can't afford any childcare and that she'll lose both her jobs if she's forced to stay with the kids. Now here's the thing. Me and my boyfriend's 5-year anniversary is coming up. We've already bought tickets, requested paid time off, and made accommodations for a 2-week trip to Europe starting this Friday. The total trip, including airfare, cost us $18,000, most of which is non-refundable. I told my sister I'd call her back and let her know after I spoke with my boyfriend. He said it was my choice completely. I decided that I wanted to go on our anniversary trip, which I had been looking forward to for a full year. I called my sister back and told her that I couldn't because of our trip. She started sobbing over the phone and lashed out at me, calling me cruel and selfish. She said that we could afford to just rebook our vacation and we didn't need that money back, but she was going to lose her job and her kids if she couldn't find someone to take them in. It was a really tough situation, but I stuck with my decision. It's been almost a day since our call, and I won't lie, I do feel a lot of guilt. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Normally in this situation, you would be the bad guy. However, with her not talking to you for a year, plus all the past history of the things she's done, I understand the decision you made. She's trying to drop all the consequences of her poor life decisions in your lap, and it's just not fair. I understand the guilt, but she wore you out and used up whatever sisterly feeling you had for her with all of her BS. Totally overused phrase, but particularly apt here. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. This is basically asking if you should waste $18,000 and 2 weeks of paid time off to help someone who's stolen from you in the past. The answer is no. While the emergency isn't your sister's fault, burning her bridge with you certainly was. She likely has other people who she can ask for help. And even if you wanted to assist, it would be more effective to pay for a babysitter than to waste the trip. It's not like being a blood relation changes anything, since from what you're saying, you'd basically been a stranger to the kids anyway. No difference in just hiring an actual babysitter. Am I the jerk for being upset about debt my girlfriend took on to help her family? I'm 33, male. My girlfriend, who's also 33, and I have been together for 1 year, and we recently started talking about our financial situations and preparation for marriage in the future. I found out that my girlfriend has a $600,000 mortgage under her name for the family home where her and her family currently live. She co-owns the home with her brother, and their family has lived there for the past 8 years. The payments for the mortgage and all other bills are paid by everyone living there, so my girlfriend only contributes about a quarter of her income to paying the loan. There are 22 years left on the mortgage, and she let me know that the plan is that they would not be selling the home once we got married, and she would move out of it, while the mortgage and bills will then be paid by her family, who will continue living there. Her parents are both older, and her mother has a disability, so she let me know that her brother and her bought the house to help their parents have a secure place to live, and this house is important to keep for her family's well-being. My girlfriend has no other debts aside from this mortgage, and she earns a 6-figure salary, more than I do. She has mentioned that she's willing to work a second part-time job to help us buy our own home in the future if needed, and she also has an emergency savings, investments, and other savings to help with a future down payment. She plans to continue getting salary increases and is very hardworking and ambitious, and I'm worried about the mortgage in her name. This is making me reconsider the relationship. Am I the jerk for being upset about this? Look, if you love her and she loves you, forget about money. It comes and it goes. You both can make more to cover bills. If she makes you happy, forget about money. She's trying to help her parents. Her intentions are good. She's a keeper. OP. I know, but I always wanted an expensive house, and I don't think I can get that with her. So why shouldn't I get my $1 million home? No, I'm not a sociopath. I just always wanted a $1 million home. So why should I sacrifice that? If I leave, I might find another woman who doesn't have debt that I can achieve my dream with. My boyfriend, 33 male, posted about wanting to dump me, 33 female, for debt that I took on to help my family. Update. As you can tell, I found his post and I've broken things off with him. I wanted to post an update to let you all know. Reading his post was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through, and this situation has caused me a lot of anxiety and worry, but I'm glad I found out. I worry that I may not ever find a partner willing to stick it out with me because of my situation, but I know I have to keep going. I'll keep working hard, and hoping that I'll find someone who won't ask me to compromise my values to make him happy. Why shouldn't you get $1 million home? Because you can't afford it, OP. It doesn't even seem like he can afford the $600,000 house that his girlfriend's family lives in, on his own. His eyes aren't matching his wallet. Also, what even is $1 million house? In some cities, that's a 2-bedroom with a yard. In others, it's maybe a place with a pool. But $1 million house doesn't offer much clarity. Entitled ex-landlord demands I leave behind the washer and dryer that I paid for. So for the past 2 years, I, 25 male, lived in a small apartment building. The apartment didn't have a laundry room for the building when I moved in, but did come with hookups for a washer and a dryer in the apartment. So I bought them myself because I work for a wildlife sanctuary and I get pretty dirty during my work. Just the other day, I had to chase down and wrestle one of our wild boars, Bacon. We didn't name him that, he came with that name, who loves to escape his pen and thinks it's funny to play chase. I got me completely dirty. I was covered in grass stains and mud, so I very much needed them. My boyfriend and I just got engaged, and since my lease was up, I moved into his house with him. I finished moving everything out of my old apartment yesterday, and I thought nothing about taking my washer and dryer with me as I had bought them. My boyfriend had some, but they were old and kept breaking down and were costing too much to have fixed. Well, I woke up this morning to multiple missed calls from my old landlord. I left my phone number and new address in case any mail was delivered to my old place. I called him back, and he asked me why the washer and dryer were gone. I explained that I took them with me. He started freaking out, saying that he had put that the place had a washer and dryer in the ad for the place. Apparently, I have raised the rent due to them. He started demanding I bring them back because the new clients he has set up to move in had already signed the lease, are not interested in a place without them. Even threatened to call the police if I don't bring them back. I got angry and told him that I would do no such thing, reminding him that they belonged to me. I bought them, and I still had the receipts from when I bought them, as well as text messages from him when I moved, explaining that I was buying them myself. He again threatens to call the police. I told him to do it and see what happened and hung up at that point. Personally, I don't think I'm in the wrong. I bought them and they weren't cheap, so I feel I have the right to take them with me. My boyfriend is on my side, but today, my coworkers said they think I'm the jerk for not telling the landlord I was taking them. In my opinion, that should have been obvious. I paid for them. Why would I leave them? Well, my landlord went through with calling the police because the next day they showed up. Honestly, nothing really noteworthy happened. I explained to them what was going on and I showed them the receipt for the washer and dryer as well as the text from the landlord I had from when I told him I was buying them. The cops took my statement and they left. My boyfriend's father is a lawyer and he's going to be contacting my landlord and sorting everything out. He advised me to not respond to the landlord anymore for the time being. Yeah, you're good. You bought it. He's demanding you leave your stuff. It's no different than demanding you leave your TV or shampoo. He's off his top if he thinks he's gonna get it. Wedding party, assault charges, and a DUI for the mother of the groom. I own a small 16-room motel with my wife. It has an attached 3-bedroom house which we live in, and aside from our 4 housekeepers, we do everything here. We have put a lot of work into renovating the place, and over the last 6 years have done a lot of improvements, which has resulted in us being successful enough that I quit my day job and we both do this full-time now. As a result, we take a lot of pride in our place, and being that it's also our home, don't put up with any BS. We each take turns doing all the guest interactions, manning the front desk, and follow a schedule. Much earlier in the year, my wife spoke with someone representing the wedding party. I can only assume the bride, but I honestly don't remember. We've learned that it's bad for business to allow wedding parties to book off blocks of rooms on the assumption that guests will call and reserve them. They wound up booking 7 rooms. The entire time they were completely disorganized, didn't know the dates, didn't know how many people, didn't know how many rooms they wanted. They called to make reservations, but honestly they had not put any thought into it beforehand, so just taking the reservations was a huge pain. We pride ourselves on our top-notch customer service, and my wife helped them get everything figured out regardless, and made sure they were sent email confirmations for everything. About 2 months later, they called and canceled 2 rooms, which was fine. We had ton of notice, so we canceled them and emailed the confirmation. Check-in day arrives, and of course, they show up around 11:30 a.m. Check-in is at 3, without calling ahead or arranging an early check-in. We were fully occupied the night before, and cleaning was underway, but nowhere near ready for them to check into their 5 rooms. I was working the front desk that day, so asked the housekeepers to focus on the wedding rooms and work to get them ready as soon as possible, again because customer service. As expected, they are completely disorganized, don't know who gets what room, and expect me to just figure it out. I ultimately did figure things out, but then they mentioned their 6th room. I review everything and only see 5 booked, and double and triple check everything, and advise they only have 5 because they canceled 2. Immediately, the father of the bride is on my case because he claims it was only supposed to be 1 room canceled. So I ask for some sort of confirmation or anything to show me a mistake was made. Of course, they can't provide anything, and I'm playing a bit dumb because I'm the one who took the call to cancel 2 rooms and can see the confirmation email we sent them clearly and offer to print out a copy for them. After some back and forth, they advise they will just book another room elsewhere because I'm fully booked that night. I even offered to pay for it if they can provide some sort of documentation that only 1 room was canceled, knowing full well that they can't. It took about 1.5 hours to get them checked in fully, and this meant their rooms were all clean by the time the nightmare check-in was complete. So I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, okay, the headache is over. It's wedding party, so obviously my fun is just beginning. Being a small family-operated motel, we don't have a 24-hour front desk, and that night it closed at 11. As mentioned above, we live on site, so if there's an emergency, lockout, etc., you can still ring a doorbell at the office and someone is still able to help out. At 12:30, I'm about to head to bed when I see 2 clearly intoxicated people I don't recognize staggering up the office on the cameras. All I could think was, oh no, you better not be ringing my doorbell at 12:30 for some stupid crap. Of course, they start ringing it repeatedly until I'm able to get to the office and open the door. They inform me that they are wedding guests, but not part of the party who had rooms reserved. They need to get into the mother of the groom's room right now and demand I give them keys. These people were not polite. They were aggressive and extremely rude. I stay cool and politely and calmly explain I cannot just give out keys to my guests' rooms to random people. They double down and start getting very rude and aggressive, calling me stupid. It's really important, blah blah blah, and they tell me that they're there to take some purses. At this point, I laughed and said there's no way I'm giving out keys to some random drunk jerks who clearly intend to steal from my guests. Get off my property or I'm calling the police. This turns into them shouting and freaking out as I stand firm. Get off my property is all I would respond with. After a few minutes, they realize they aren't going to get anywhere and just stagger away from the office door. I go back to my living room and I'm glued to the cameras. Immediately, I see one of them start going to the bathroom in my parking lot. I was already pretty upset, so I head right outside and quite loudly tell him twice, "Stop that, you animal! Now I'm absolutely calling the cops." They did ultimately head off my property and hang out on the curb of the highway out front, off my property. I called the cops regardless. What he was doing was not okay. While waiting for the cops to arrive and keeping an eye on these people, I see 2 other wedding guests return in a car and park in front of their room. This was the only nice, polite, and friendly couple in the group. I liked them and didn't lump them in with the rest. They obviously recognized the 2 idiots standing out at the curb, so they head over to talk to them, clearly to ask what was going on. They talked for a minute, and I laughed pretty hard when they both just started shaking their heads and walked away from the other 2. A minivan then pulled up and picked up the 2 idiots and left. I called the cops back and said, don't bother coming, they're gone, and thought this time, okay, that's gotta be the end of it, right? Of course not. The next morning, the mother of the bride calls me and explains that the mother of the groom is in the drunk tank and was charged with a DUI. She was the van driver, and the crazy drunk idiot at my door that night was her boyfriend. They ask me what can be done to get into the mother of the groom's room so that they can get her purse and bring it to her at the police station. I say only the person whose name is on the registration card can access that room, and made an exception saying she can call me to ask me to go in the room and give her purse to a designated person. So all this happened, and we get her stuff out and give in to the mother of the bride. Everyone else eventually checked out, and I thought that was that. 2 weeks later, we get a call from the police. They advise us the drunk idiot boyfriend is being charged with assault for headbutting someone. Apparently, after picking him up from the curb, they went back to the wedding, proceeded to continue being drunk idiots, got kicked out, and returned to my motel. They got into an argument in the parking lot, and then he headbutted her. He's claiming he just lost his balance. It was not an assault, and they wanted to know if we might have camera footage. So my wife found the footage of him clearly doing the headbutting and handed it over to the cops with a big grin on her face. My wife, who's 37, had elective cosmetic surgery, and I, 42, I'm having a very negative reaction to the results. We've been together for over 15 years. A few months ago, she mentioned she was going to get it done. We discussed it, and I was extremely against it. I thought the whole thing was a waste of money, dangerous, and I find the aesthetic unappealing. I shared these feelings, and she told me that she was doing it anyway, found a doctor she liked, and arranged everything. A month or so ago, she told me she had scheduled the surgery and that she needed a ride there and back and would be laid up for a few days, and the recovery was something like 14 to 20 weeks. I again told her that it was a bad idea. She looked great. I find the results unattractive and that she should really think about what she's doing. She told me her mom would take her if I didn't. Fast forward 6 weeks. The results are what she expected and she's happy. The results are what I expected and I'm mortified. I feel she's ruined herself. I'm not overreacting. Her own family thinks the results are questionable. I have heard them, so this isn't just my opinion. I've always thought my wife was beautiful, and I've told her this since day one and have maintained this feeling for as long as we've been together. We haven't slept in the same bed due to her recovery since the surgery and won't for more than likely a while. I have a hard time looking at her, and I get a deep sense of loss and sadness, and the relationship is coming off the rails. Fighting, nasty comments, silent treatment, etc. My wife is mad at me for my reaction, saying that I'm being ridiculous and unsupportive, and I'm responding with, "I told you exactly how I would feel and you did it anyway. What did you expect?" She's blaming me for being angry and distant, but on the flip side, physical attraction is part of a relationship. And yeah, she's the same person, she just doesn't look like the same person. I told her how I felt and how I feel about it. She made the decision ignoring me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since so many are asking what was done, it wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of procedures done at once, hence the long recovery time. Not the jerk. Part of being an adult in a relationship is understanding that you can't just run off and do anything you want without talking about it with your partner first. Everything you do affects them now. A relationship must have constant dialogue about things like this. I couldn't just go out and get a bunch of tattoos, get massive gains, and buy a bunch of stuff, totally change how I look, or so on, without talking about it with my wife. It affects her. I care about how she feels. It would need to be something really extreme for me to disregard that. You're angry because she didn't care how you felt. She's right, it is her choice. But do you really want to spend your life with someone who doesn't care how you feel? My Karen wife won't let me buy the coffee I want, even though I'm the only one who works. I've lately come to enjoy some nicer coffee than I usually drink. I brew it at home, so we're not talking daily $7 drinks or anything. Instead of getting a giant bulk bag of Kirkland coffee, I've come to enjoy a $12 bag from the grocery store. It lasts a bit over a week, maybe 2, instead of $15 for about 5 weeks. My wife doesn't work. I work from home. She also unfortunately isn't doing a lot around the house right now because of a medical condition. I've been picking up most of the slack while she sits around. This has been going on for 6 months for the household, years for the job. Yes, she has depression. Yes, she's getting treatment for it. I try my best to do what I can, but oftentimes I have to ask her multiple times to help with even simple tasks to share responsibility. We've had discussions on how I know she's working on the issue, but I can't do everything on my own. I make plenty to be able to have my coffee be a splurge. She'd previously commented on the cost, and I said, "It's well within the budget, and I like it. It's fine." Edit. I'd shown her the grocery budget, which is nearly always under budget every month for the past few years. I brought home another bag the other day, and she made another comment along the lines of, "You're spending way too much on this fancy coffee. You need to go back to the other stuff." Having had to make the grocery run again, after doing other household chores that morning, I snapped. The one with the job gets to make the grocery choices. Work again or contribute to the household, and you can have a say in what we buy. She called me a cold-hearted jerk and stormed out of the room. So, am I the jerk for my reaction to being called out on coffee buying? Everyone sucks here. For your part of it, it's only for saying the one with the job gets to make the grocery choices. In my opinion, that is cold-hearted. But if it really is the difference of $4.50 a week and that's within the budget, then she's being unreasonable. Not the jerk for buying the coffee you want, but a statement like that makes you sound like an obnoxious jerk. You get the jerk rating for that. If the situation were reversed, would you want your wife to be so dismissive of your concerns? You and your wife are life partners, for better or for worse, so what's yours is also hers and vice versa. Explain to her that you enjoy this coffee and it's under budget and continue to buy it if you want to, but don't act like some egotistical jerk. Everyone sucks here. As long as you're not about to lose the house or in financial troubles, she should not be dictating what you can and can't buy. It doesn't sound like this coffee is going to break the bank. She's a jerk for that. Maybe worth talking to her about why she has such anxiety about finances. It could come from her background or possibly from feeling guilty about not being able to work. On the other hand, you are absolutely the jerk for saying because you earn the money, you make all the financial decisions. You agreed to support her and she has valid reasons for not being able to work. If you don't like this situation, divorce her. But saying you get to make all the financial decisions because you're making the money is heading down the path of financially mistreating her. Comments like this are only going to make her more worried about your finances. You're the jerk. You sound like a monster, to be honest. Why do men still think it's our job to be your maids? Newsflash, it's not the 50s anymore. As a married couple, whatever money you earn is just as much hers as it is yours. When I was growing up, my dad tried the same crap, telling my mom that because he was the one working while she was watching TV all day, that he got to make the big financial decisions. Long story short, she decided to leave him and he's still paying her alimony to this day. Instead of retiring early like he planned to, he's still working at almost 70 years old and she gets to enjoy her life like she deserved to. That's what I call a win, and I hope your wife does the same thing to you for how horribly you're treating her.
And they wonder why the marriage rates are declining so much.
Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for firing an employee returning from maternity leave? I really don't think I'm in the wrong here. I feel like the devil right now, so I'll accept whatever judgment you all have. I run a team of about 6 people. Our company offers a large amount of maternity leave, 10 months. One of my employees got pregnant recently. I'll call her Jess. Our team does project-based work, and in the period between her leaving for maternity leave, we finished up the project we were working on when she left and started working on a project without her. During this period, our team had to adapt to working without her expertise in certain matters. We adapted and eventually some of us developed the skills needed to do some of her workload. The situation we have now is me and 2 others split half the work that Jess used to do, and we have hired someone new to come into the team to handle the other part of Jess's workload and then some. This new employee came at significantly reduced cost, as he was straight out of uni and we pay him a fraction of what Jess costs currently. Now Jess has come back to the team, but there's another issue. Our firm has informed us that for some stupid reason, we no longer have the budget for a 7-person team and we'll have to let someone go. The news came about when I submitted the paperwork for Jess's return. We are 5 months into a project that should take an estimated 10 months, and my decision came down to Jess and the man we hired to replace her. The reason we hired a replacement, which is not normally what we do, is because we anticipated that for this project, the workload would be far greater than our current capacity, which it is not. As you can tell by the title, I chose the replacement. I did so for the following reasons. Far cheaper, thus freeing up a lot more money than keeping Jess on. He was up to date on the project, and we would be able to move forward seamlessly, whereas with Jess, we would have to take time catching her up to speed on half the project. The clients already knew and liked working with him, whereas they didn't know Jess at all. She's been out of the field for a prolonged period, whilst he's been here for the past 9 months, so she may or may not find it hard to adapt back to work life, whilst with him it isn't a question. He performed his work better than she did hers and interacted better with the team. Obviously, the ideal situation which I wanted was to keep both and not put a new single mother with no other job lined up out in the cold, but I had to do right by the team and firm. I told her I'd write her a brilliant letter of recommendation and that in a few months she could try and apply for a job at our firm. Hopefully we'll have the budget, but she snapped at me and told me not to bother and called me a jerk and left. I know I sound cold and heartless, but I had to be fair to both employees, not just Jess, right? You're the jerk. Every single reason you mentioned was only true because she had been gone for maternity leave, which legally cannot be a reason to terminate someone. Yet it is the cause behind every reason you gave. Be prepared for a lawsuit. OP somehow firmly believes he's free and clear of all legal ramifications, and while I haven't seen what country they're in, I have a hard time believing after all his comments he can prove he fired her above board. ETA. Not to mention, he says more than once in the comments how no one was even remotely qualified to fill Jess's shoes and perform her role to the same extent she did. Heck, even in the original post, he says it took 3 people to take on her job. How can you justify firing her for anything but punishment for using a benefit her own company provided? Bonkers. I mean, his first attempt posting here said he basically fired his employee for being pregnant. If that's not admission of discrimination, I don't know what is. In the words of Andrew Garfield in The Social Network, you better lawyer up, jerk. You're the jerk. Jess, if you ever see this and the OP is deleted, I took screenshots. You're punishing her for having a baby and taking the maternity leave that your business offers? You knew she was coming back. Why didn't you hire a temp replacement until that time? You're not going to save money after she takes legal action for being fired because she's a mother. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for firing them or not? Please let us know.
If you knew she was returning, why hire a permanent replacement for her? I don't get that.
Karen wife is jealous that I'm performing husband duties for my friend. I, 36 male, have a longtime friend, 34 female, who I live about 4 blocks from. We've always been very close. Her husband passed 3 years ago after a 9-month battle with brain cancer, during which she was his full-time caretaker. I was also very close with her husband, and since I lived close by, I would go over and help as much as I could, be it cooking, cleaning, taking the kids out to do things, yard work, and maintenance around the house, especially as he declined and required round-the-clock care. After he passed, I've continued to help my friend and her kids, and I spent a lot of time with her kids, who are now 11 and 9. Last year, I married my wife, who I started dating after my friend's husband had passed, so this isn't anything new. Since then, there have been consistent arguments about me performing husband duties for my friend. Some examples of the things she was upset about. My friend called because when she woke up, a pipe had burst in the ceiling and she couldn't find a plumber who would come out that day. I'm a contractor, so I was able to call a friend and he went over ASAP. And then I headed over and I helped her clean up the mess and helped with her talking to her insurance and hiring a remediation company. After that was done, I helped her demo and replace the drywall. Her car broke down, so I picked up her kids from school and went and played basketball with them while she got it to the shop and grabbed a rental. And then the boys wanted to have a pizza party, so we grabbed some pizzas and had dinner at the park. She was re-landscaping her backyard and putting in some raised planter beds, and I went over on my day off to help her. My wife is always welcome. She doesn't usually want to go, and instead she thinks that I should let her figure it out because she's a big girl and needs to stop acting like I'm her husband. She's even gone as far as suggesting that my friend wants to steal me away from my wife because she needs someone to take care of her. ETA. I met this friend and her husband in college while they were dating, and I was in a long-term relationship. I was a groomsman in their wedding, and I am the godfather of both their sons, and I was asked to be before both were born. No jerks here. I have a friend who does similar things for me since my husband passed, and I know that he's trying to look out for me because he was my husband's best friend. I really appreciate his help, but I would draw the line at inviting him to stay for pizza or hang out with my kids in case his wife, who's a really cool person, thought it was too much. If your wife is starting to feel uncomfortable, then you need to dial it back a bit. Save your help for the big things, like major do-it-yourself projects, and keep up with your friends socially by inviting her over to your house to hang out with you and your wife together. Info. Are you helping out and spending time with your friend more than you have free time to relax with your wife? Have you ever canceled plans with your wife to help your friend? Have you tried to involve your wife in some of these activities, like the meal with the kids? Or do you keep it so your involvement with your friend and her kids is separate? Have you not considered that your wife probably expected your assistance and involvement in your friend's life to reduce, if not stop completely after you were married? Cheat on me behind my back? I'll cancel your Spotify. So after she told me she was talking to someone while we were together, I was extremely depressed. I've been getting better though, and 3 weeks have now passed. Then I realized I paid for another month of Spotify for our Duo account. I tried reaching out to her on Thursday since I noticed some odd things about her. She left work early due to an anxiety attack, so I invited her to hang out at the beach to watch the sunset. She replied to me, "It's been 3 weeks. Congratulations on respecting your first boundary with me. I'm on my way out of town. Maybe next time." So I knew she was going to be driving for a while. Since we work together, I saw she had to work tomorrow, so that means she has quite some time on the road today, Saturday. I decided I'm going to take her off my plan and it'll stop all the premium stuff that's included with it. I hope she enjoys the ads. It was petty of me, but I did enjoy this because she absolutely treated me horrible for months. But I also want to cut anything that involves freebies. I don't want to spend another dime any longer especially since I paid for everything that we did. I'm happier now, and I know my petty revenge was a step back to my growth. However, it was nice to start moving on because I can't continue the path where my health is affected. I've grown tired of typing, but I enjoyed my laugh, and now I'm going to enjoy my time. My ex was using my Netflix account, and at one point I noticed that she was watching a series. As she got closer to the end of the series, I changed my password with probably 2 episodes left. I laughed about it for at least a week. My ex used my Hulu. He broke up with me and I changed my password, and this man had the audacity to ask me for the new password. Felt so good to say no. Hired a private investigator to watch my fiancee on her girls' trip, and now my life is over. To cut a long story short, my fiancée and I have been together for 5 years. Every year, she goes on this girls-only trip with her close friends. Something in my gut had been bothering me about these trips. Maybe it was the slight changes in her behavior afterwards or the cryptic conversations I'd overhear. Instead of directly confronting her, I did something I'm deeply ashamed of. I hired a private investigator to watch her during her recent trip. I got back the results a few days ago, and as much as I regret violating her privacy, my suspicions were not unfounded. The private investigator presented evidence of her being unfaithful. It broke my heart. Now I'm caught in this storm of emotions. On one hand, I deeply regret snooping and not trusting her enough to talk about it. On the other hand, the betrayal from her side feels even more significant. I love her, but I can't see a future together anymore. How do I even approach the situation? Do I confess my snooping or just end things without revealing the reason? Any advice is welcome. Just tell her you know. You don't have to give details. She's not going to tell all her details. Be glad you didn't marry her. Move on, dude. When she asks why, say that you know she's cheating and leave it at that. Don't tell her anything else. Her punishment is never knowing how you know. When you completely stump her and she has no idea how you know, she'll start yelling at you, accusing you of all kinds of stuff, insulting you however she can, anything to get you to scream back. Don't lose your cool, keep it together and just leave. Then ghost her. You're done here. Update. When my fiancée returned from her trip, I tried my best to handle things maturely. I gave her a chance to be honest, asking if there was anything she wanted to share about her trip. Instead of coming clean, she gaslit me, making me question my own perceptions and reality. Having the evidence I had, I confronted her about the affair. She was taken aback and immediately asked how I knew. I told her the truth, that I hired a private investigator. I didn't want to falsely accuse any of her friends, as some of you suggested, even though honestly, part of me was tempted. She was furious. I've never seen her that angry in all of our years together. Additionally, feeling it was the right thing to do, I shared the evidence with one of her friend's boyfriends so he could be informed. It was clear to both of us that our relationship had reached a breaking point. We broke up right then. Despite it being my house that I financially covered for us, I left and checked into a hotel, giving her space and asking her to pack her things and move out. We didn't communicate for a few days. When she finally reached out, she expressed a desire to talk and perhaps find a way to mend things. But the trust was already broken and I couldn't see a future for us. I told her no. And now, the part I didn't see coming. She's considering pursuing palimony payments. For those unaware, palimony is financial support provided to a partner in a non-marital relationship after separation. I've been informed that due to the relationship laws in our state, this could very well be a real concern. I've initiated the process of hiring a lawyer. During our relationship, I took on the majority of the financial responsibilities, including the mortgage. We had an unspoken understanding. My money is our money, her money is her money, due to our significant income difference. I never thought that my generosity would come back to haunt me. There it is, the update many of you asked for. I wish I had a happier conclusion to this chapter, but life has its twists and turns. It seems she might have the upper hand in this final act, but I'm hoping for a fair resolution. Thank you for the support and advice. It's really meant a lot. I can't comment on the legal part of it because I'm not from where OP is from, but man, the audacity of his ex to cheat on him and lie and ask for money support after being found out. Wow. I hope OP walks clean out of this mess. Yes, hiring a PI could be considered shameful, but his gut feeling was correct and it looks like his ex was only using him for his money. That's so sad, man. Wishing the best of luck. I always find it interesting how people who have multi-year-long affairs want to mend things. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Check their phone every day? Control who they're friends with? Never let them go out anywhere unless you're with them? Or do they really think they'll go back to the status quo? So odd. I feel for this guy. You can tell he really loves her. He has nothing to be ashamed of. At least he had the sense to get proof. I'm sure the private investigator did a better job than any family or friends could have, getting all the evidence he needs for his impending court case. A newbie at work said I'm not a gamer because I don't play Call of Duty. Later, he finds out I'm his senior. At my work, I'm one of the senior members of the staff, basically lower than a manager but higher than a team leader. I mainly specialize on a few specific systems, and a part of my job is to help people who have issues with them, and also I do a lot of quality control and working at the background on the said systems. It's also worth noting that possibly due to some black magic my ancestors practiced, everyone in my family looks a fair bit younger than they really are. Nothing stupid like looking 30 when you're 70, more like looking about 10 to 15 years younger than you actually are, depending on your age. Me and my work friend were discussing Persona games. I was really excited about getting P5R for my boyfriend for Xmas, and we'd been playing it a lot. My friend was saying how he couldn't really get into Persona games. He tried Persona 4, but it's just not his type of game. By the time the events happened, we were still talking about the games, but moved on Horizon Zero Dawn and how expensive the next game is, around 80 pounds. Now that's when one of the apprentices who joined recently hears us and decides to join the conversation. He says something along the lines that he plays games too and asks if I play Call of Duty. Now, I don't like multiplayer games. They're simply not my cup of tea, and the maximum I can do is an occasional co-op game with people I know, but mostly I just play single-player games. Of course, I said no, I don't play Call of Duty, as I don't really like it, and for me it feels a bit overrated. The apprentice loses his interest, says that, "Maybe you're not as much of a gamer as you want to look like," and goes back to his training, telling me that I should do the same if I want to succeed, instead of talking about anime games. I think he overheard us talking about Persona. I let go a small laugh, and I carry on with the conversation that I had before with my friend. About 2 hours later, manager comes around as he wants to introduce the apprentice to the team properly. Of course, he mentions the job titles. Now the poor soul finds out my name and the fact that I'm not an apprentice as he thought, but actually I'm his senior who he has no chance of avoiding talking to while doing his job. His face turns red, his eyes are widening, and I can see he's trying to figure out how to get out of the situation, but he can't. I find the situation hilarious and just curious how this will play out, as he'll have to talk to me at some point. Holidays pass, and I had to pop into my desk today to grab something and find Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection on my desk, and a message saying he wants to apologize for what he said. What do you think? Should I forgive him or let him suffer the awkwardness a bit more? P.S. I haven't played Uncharted games yet, if this makes any difference. Update. So last week I had some training scheduled with this guy to show him some advanced bits about the job. Everything went fine, and I've thanked him for the game and decided to ask why he said what he did. I've also mentioned that I'm not here to judge him for liking Call of Duty, but he shouldn't be shaming people for not liking the games that he does. He has apologized again, and it felt he needed to talk to someone about it. He's explained that he grew up playing Final Fantasy and Pokemon games and absolutely loved them. He also enjoyed single-player games like Uncharted, Tomb Raider, and The Last of Us on console. However, when he started college, his friends started making fun of him for enjoying single-player games and basically bullied him into believing that he can't be classified as a gamer if he doesn't play games like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and that gamers must like competitive games. He felt left out as his college buddies would only talk about Call of Duty, Battlefield, girls, and parties, and felt the need to fit in, so over time he started adapting their beliefs. He even said he's not good at those games and mostly played them to talk to people and to not feel lonely. I told him again how he should never be ashamed for enjoying other games more and that a lot of gamers prefer single player to multiplayer. He shouldn't stop playing games he likes because some kids think it's uncool, and that friends who bully people to get them to do what they want are not actually real friends. He got the point, and my work colleague, who heard the initial exchange, reached out to him as well, saying if he feels lonely or wants to try something different, he can loan him some games to play, and he can always join his team in Rocket League if he needs a chat. So, I guess it's a happy ending.
Something tells me this boy's diet consists primarily of Mountain Dew and Doritos.
I, 28 male, can't have kids, and my wife, who's 27, doesn't want to adopt. My biological parents left me when I was very young, and I was adopted when I was 8. My adoptive parents were wonderful to me, and I have a brother who is the biological child of my adoptive parents, 3 years older than me. Being abandoned had a profound impact on me, and I've always had a strong desire to be a father and to have kids. I met my wife when I was 19 and she was 18. I've always been open with her about my history, providing all the details, and I made it clear that my dream was to have a family with more than one kid. She also expressed a desire to have a family, and this was never an issue. We got married, and it's been about 2 years since we decided it was time to have our first baby. We started trying, but she didn't get pregnant, so we sought medical advice to understand if there were any issues. It was then that I found out I'm sterile, and my wife doesn't have any medical problems. I was devastated, but since I myself was adopted, I saw adoption as the ideal solution. I suggested to my wife that we should adopt, but she was against it. She cited reasons that are, in reality, based on prejudice. I was deeply saddened by this because when you talk about one of those kids, you're also talking about me. We've had many discussions, but I haven't been able to change her mind. On the other hand, she proposed that we should undergo artificial insemination with an anonymous donor. I disagreed with this because it would cost a lot of money, and I feel it's unfair to act so selfishly when there are thousands of kids waiting to be adopted. Our marriage is going through a serious crisis because of this. I can't comprehend how she can hold such opinions about adoption while being married to me. I'd appreciate any suggestions on how to change her mind. I've seriously considered separation because being a father is the dream of my life. However, I still love my wife. Would separating over this issue be too extreme? I'm really lost. Edit. I forgot an extremely important point when I wrote. My wife said that if we had a kid through artificial insemination, we would be the biological parents, even though I'm not the biological father. I completely disagreed with that. I believe we need to be as honest as possible with the kid. The options ahead of you are 1. Accept you want to stay together, even though that means not having kids. 2. Attend couples counseling and see if you two can have some breakthroughs in communication. Or 3. Accept that you are incompatible on the subject of having kids, even though you both want them, and break up. Best of luck. I'm sorry you're going through this. Hi, I'm a fellow adoptee. I absolutely do not recommend that you try to convince her to adopt. I know what it's like to know that you were only adopted because one parent really wanted to and the other settled for it. To be honest, I'm shocked that her true feelings never came up before. I've spoken at length about my adoption with my husband, who's not adopted, and before we decided being child-free, we did discuss biological or adoptive. Unfortunately, it sounds like you two may be incompatible at this point. Based on your edit, I agree that you absolutely shouldn't have a kid via insemination and say that you're the biological father if you're not. However, there seems to be a lot of other deeper issues that need to be communicated between you and your wife. My opinion is that you find an adoption-competent therapist to help you really delve into your feelings of your adoption and potential parenthood. You wanted a biological kid until it wasn't possible, so you turned to adoption. I think that needs to be explored. I think before you and your wife decide to do anything, pursue parenthood or separation, it would be beneficial to speak to a counselor to ensure that you two are on the same page. I, 28 female, lost the ring my fiancé proposed to me with, and I feel so guilty. I feel like I should preface this by saying I've always been a little scatterbrained. Among the things I have lost are my car keys, my wallet. I've misplaced this one so much that my fiancé got me one of those Apple trackers, a very expensive work-issued laptop I found after 3 days on the subway. A worker held it for me. Jewelry. Fiancé once gave me a necklace and I misplaced that. Also, my mother gave me a ring when I was a young adult. I lost it a long time ago. And cash. One time I lost half the rent. You need to stop losing stuff. Are you serious? Headphones. About 3 cell phones. I almost misplaced my new one, but I realized soon enough and went back for it. A personal diary and a book of poetry, and probably other things that I can't remember right now. I should also say that I don't really wear jewelry. I wear earrings maybe once or twice a month, and a necklace if I go out. I've not worn a ring since I lost the one my mother gave me. I can't remember the occasion. Maybe it was a birthday. Here's the backstory. A year ago, we were discussing marriage and things. His stance is, my grandparents have been together for 50 years, and they only got married about a decade ago. I don't think you should put a timeline on marriage. It could be 5 or 10 years before you can be ready for marriage. My stance was, if you don't know after 3 years that you want to marry me or not, then don't waste my time. I see so many people on this subreddit and social media and in my neighborhood where the guy just leads her on for years and years. Plus, I want to own a home one day, and I do not want to buy a home with my boyfriend. I do not think it's legally wise to do so. Marriage is important in that if something were to happen to either of us, passing, medical emergency, you need insurance, etc., then the spouse is usually covered. So I told him, you have 3 years to propose. I don't care if it's with a ring pop when I plan to buy a house. My family also pressures both of us. They have somewhat traditional views about commitment and monogamy. He took this as an ultimatum, but said that he understood. My fiancé proposed to me last Tuesday. I was ecstatic, relieved, elated, but I also felt the same. I told him, I'm marrying you, not my family's approval. The only thing I expect to change is that our tax returns will increase and we'll have a bundle of joy. I'm 35 weeks pregnant. That being said, I had this beautiful engagement ring for more than a week. I had been taking it off to wash my hands and then apply lotion. I find the feeling of metal on my wet skin to be very annoying and unnatural. I didn't even notice that I didn't have the ring on until yesterday when I came home and he asked, "Where's your ring?" I immediately started searching for it among my work things, but I knew I'd left it in the office. I hoped that no one would take it, like a coworker or a cleaning person. I went back to work, but the place is locked after hours, and I knew management would just say, "Can't you look tomorrow?" Before I went home, he called me to check how things went and to see where I was. I sort of told him that I was out, but hearing his voice made me want to cry. I stopped by my godmother's house, whom I'm close with. I was hysterical, afraid that he'd break up with me. She told me that the ring is a material thing and that I should be more careful, but I don't think he will break up with you if he's as good a man as we think he is. I got home last night, and before I went to bed, I reiterated how sorry I was and how devastated and ashamed I felt at losing something so important in a little over a week. He said not to worry, he has a solution, and that he's not mad, which I found hard to believe, but it could have been my own guilt. I went in today and checked my desk, but I couldn't find it. I asked management if they could check the security cameras, and they said that they have the ring. I was ecstatic. I texted my fiancé and he called me. I took a breath of fresh air. I was so relieved. Then he said, "Want to know what my solution if you couldn't find it was?" I said sure. And he said, "If you couldn't find it, I would have said no problem, but we go back to being boyfriend and girlfriend. And that ultimatum you gave me, it would be a moot point. I would have proposed on my time, whether it's 5 years or 10 years down the line." I was a bit speechless. He continued, "Because it would have shown me that you're not ready. Besides it costing lots of money, it's a symbol of our love, and you lost it in a week, which is crazy. Also, it's really embarrassing, because when the people we've told ask, 'Where's the ring?' what would I say? What would you say? And no, I wouldn't let you replace it. We have the baby to think about, and besides, that's not the point. I make more than he does, and I could give him the money back immediately, though I'd dip into my emergency fund." I asked him, "Could we maybe compromise, and I get a tattoo and wear it for special occasions?" He said no, and wouldn't really say much else, just that he had to get ready for work. I know what he's thinking. Like, here I spent all this money, and she doesn't even want to wear it. I also see his point, and just don't know what to do. I still feel ashamed that I can't even keep up with something so important. You need to implement the rule people with ADHD use. Don't put it down, put it away. Whatever important thing you're holding, it does not leave your hand unless it's going in one designated spot. Every single time you pick it up, it goes back to that spot. If it's only ever being put in one spot, it's much harder to lose. You know where it is. It's in its spot. Right now, it sounds like you're just kind of dropping things wherever you last used them. And of course you're losing them, if that's what you're doing. Your spot for your ring needs to be either on your finger or in its box in your bag or pocket. You never put it down unless it's going in one of those two spots. That way, you'll always find it. You need to do this because honestly, you're very lucky you haven't suffered much worse consequences for your lack of care and memory problems. The things you've lost so far could have cost you your job, your house, and your fiancé. Get your crap together and figure out a solution. Also, finger tattoos aren't as great of a solution as you might think. We were looking into them, but it turns out they rub off very quickly. In general, tattoos on the hands don't tend to last because you're constantly using and washing them. So you'd have to be constantly redoing it, which isn't a fantastic thing to be wasting money on if you're trying to get into the housing market. A lot of places won't even do finger tats because they're difficult to maintain. Am I the jerk for not backing down on my daughter's teachers calling her the proper name? My daughter, Alexandra, who's 14, hates any shortened version of her name. This has gone on since she was about 10. The family respects it, and she's pretty good about advocating for herself should someone call her Lexi, Alex, etc. She also hates when people get her name wrong and just wants to be called Alexandra. She took Spanish in middle school. The teacher wanted to call all students by the Spanish version of their name, provided there was one. So she tried to call Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, and the teacher respected it. She had the same teacher all 3 years of middle school, so it wasn't an issue. Now she's in high school and is taking Spanish. Once again, the new teacher announced if a student had a Spanish version of their name, she'd call them that. So she called Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, but the teacher ignored her. My daughter came home upset after the second week. I'm not the type of mom to write emails, but I felt I had to in this case. If it matters, this teacher is not Hispanic herself, so this isn't a pronunciation issue. Her argument is if these kids ever went to a Spanish-speaking country, they'd be called by that name. I found this excuse a little weak, as the middle school Spanish teacher actually was Hispanic, who had come from a Spanish-speaking country, and she respected Alexandra's wishes. The teacher tried to dig her heels in, but I said if it wasn't that big a deal in her eyes that she calls her Alejandra, why is it such a big deal to just call her Alexandra? Eventually, she gave in. Alexandra confirmed that her teacher is calling her by her proper name. My husband feels I blew this out of proportion, and Alexandra could have sucked it up for a year. The school has 3 different Spanish teachers, so odds are she could get another one her sophomore year. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but the teacher's reasoning was off. If I went to a foreign country and told them my name was Anthony and they started calling me Antonio, I would tell them Anthony is what they need to call me. It's different for a person who has worked hard to be called their correct name to have it changed than for a person with a generic name. For example, someone named John goes through life with his name correctly pronounced, and it's fun to be called Juan for an hour. Everyone sucks here. Converting names into a foreign language class is a common thing, even when it's a complete swap. It's not a personal attack or disrespect right off the bat. The middle school Spanish teacher probably gave in because it's not worth the hassle dealing with parents who think every kid's demand must be met, which honestly is what this high school teacher probably should have done for their own sanity. Your husband is right that you and Alexandra are overreacting to the situation. Your email isn't going to help either. OP even admitted that they realize it's just for a year and it's the teacher trying to assimilate the kids into the culture. What is happening in these comments? Yes, you're the jerk and so is your daughter. I'm in my mid-40s, and when I took Spanish in school 30 years ago, it was the same thing. Why is this a big deal? It really shouldn't be. My name doesn't translate to Spanish, so my teacher just gave me a different name. This is absurd to be upset about. You both sound childish. I also can't believe the comments. She's very privileged if this is her biggest problem at school. You're the jerk. I was prepared to say not the jerk, thinking this was a history or math or English class, but this is pretty typical for a foreign language class. My name in Spanish class was Jose, which bore no resemblance to my actual name. If this is such a problem for your daughter, I feel bad for her because she's going to lead a very unhappy life, and you sound exactly like the kind of mom to send emails. Well, who do you think is the jerk, OP or the teacher? Please let us know.
And people wonder why their kids grow up to be Karens. I loved the Spanish name I had when I took Spanish, and so did every other kid in the class. Some people just need a serious chill pill.
If you leave the ward, we will discharge you. In 2011, my darling daddy had to have surgery to remove one of his kidneys due to a large cyst. 2 days after his surgery, while he was on the ward recovering, he began to feel unwell, but thankfully it was something he was used to that could be resolved easily: heart palpitations. Now, Dad has been having heart palpitations since the mid-90s, and while it was scary in the early days, by 2011, it was really a simple routine. Go to A&E and get an injection from the cardiac team at the hospital. Sometimes he would have a normal sinus rhythm, but would be having palpitations nonetheless, identified by the feeling in his body. The doctor on shift took an ECG and promptly informed him that he was not having heart palpitations. He had normal sinus rhythm. He tried to explain that he had been having palpitations for 15 years. He knows what palpitations feel like, and that all she needed to do was call the cardiac team. This was a semi-regular occurrence, about once a year, and the heart nurses all knew him by name and loved him. He's quite a character. The doctor refused to page the cardiac team, repeating that he wasn't having palpitations. For a couple of hours, Dad sat there in panic, getting more and more distressed. It was outside of visiting time, so he was alone. He told the doctor that he would make his own way to the cardiac team, and she told him,
"If you leave the ward, we will formally discharge you."
Again, this was 2 days after losing a major organ. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. Dad called 999 from his hospital bed. When they asked for his address, he said, "That's an interesting question. Normally it's at my house, but right now I'm in this ward at this hospital." Shocked, the call handler asked what happened, and Dad relayed the whole thing to them. The call handler escalated the call to a manager who asked to speak to Dad's doctor and gave her a massive dressing down. Her face grayed as she realized the gravity of what was happening. She immediately arranged for a porter to take him to A&E, UK emergency room, to be assessed by the cardiac team. And what do you know? He was in fact having palpitations and had been for several hours. A quick injection later, his heart was back to normal, and we were all left stunned by the whole thing. I was in my 20s at the time, and Dad was my superhero, and seeing him crying in a hospital bed, looking so scared and small, will never leave me. I will never forget what that doctor did, and I'll never forgive her. She never even apologized to him or to us. Dad could probably have taken the hospital, the doctor, and the trust to court, but that's just not his bag, and he just let it go like water off a duck's back. 12 years later, and he's healthy and happy, but I honestly thought I might lose him because of an arrogant doctor and her stubbornness. Would I be the jerk for not letting my sister see the baby before I make a move out of state? My husband and I welcomed our first baby into the world a few months ago. To say the least, it's been pretty hectic as we're first-time parents. My oldest sister, let's call her Lily, is in a wheelchair and lives on her own with round-the-clock care. For the past 10 years, I've taken care of my sister alongside with other caregivers. Before anyone asks, my mom is simply too old and unhealthy to care for her in recent years. She's also sort of been absent from caring for her. I would go to her house 7 days a week. I was there anywhere between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day. Around 36 weeks, I took leave to focus on myself and baby. My sister seemed to have an issue with it. She complained to anyone who would listen that I wouldn't talk to her. Mind you, I was strictly focusing on preparing for the arrival of my baby and hardly had time or mental energy to conversate with anyone. Lily is very emotionally demanding. She expects your time when she wants it. Being that her mind is at 15 years old despite being 45, I could not do this. I couldn't give her more of my time than I already had. After my baby was born, I became so drained of any emotional or social energy. I struggled with postpartum depression. My physical recovery was painful and exhausting. I'm still recovering intact. During this, my sister bombarded everyone and myself for my time, saying she couldn't understand why I wouldn't speak to her. I would go off to tell her she needed to give me time to recover. This wasn't good enough, and she persisted. Finally, I snapped, told her she was not entitled to my time and that I've been struggling with adjusting and that she needed to give me time. She constantly wanted to know when I'd return to work. I get paid by the state to take care of her, or when I'd be by with my newborn. My sister didn't like my radio silence and decided to fire me in the middle of my recovery because I wouldn't communicate with her. My husband has struggled finding work the past year, and it's been incredibly hard, so she really threw us for a loop when she fired me. Our main source of income is now gone, and my husband's job doesn't pay nearly enough for us to sustain ourselves. I was livid. A week or so ago, my husband got an amazing offer out of state. Being where we weren't finding work here, we jumped on the opportunity, largely due to the fact that we'd go homeless if we stood in a high cost of living area. We live in California. We didn't want to leave our entire family behind, but after searching for work endlessly, it seems our only option. Now here's the part where I think I might be the jerk. My sister hasn't spoken to me, nor I to her. Everyone knows I'm leaving except her. I didn't exactly plan on telling her, but my family is pushing me to let her see my baby before I leave. I don't want to, but at the same time, I feel it might not be worth the trouble avoiding her to appease my family. So, would I be the jerk? Edit. My return date was up in the air due to the complications I had during delivery. I had lost a lot of blood and I was in the hospital for 3 days. I kept getting extensions due to my slow recovery physically and mentally. She was aware of this. Edit 2. I'll clarify a few common mistakes. She did not pay out of pocket for me being there. There was supposed to be a temporary replacement. Her firing me was due to not having my communication as a sister, not an employee. My return date was never exact because of my complicated delivery.
I almost lost 2 liters of blood, and I had to recover for 3 days. I was on unpaid maternity leave by the program that I got paid through, so not having a job did financially impact our lives. I decided to tell her that I'll be leaving within the next month. As for seeing the baby, I'll ask her if she wants to, which I'm sure she will. No jerks here. This sounds like a challenging mixture of work and family. Would it lift an emotional load from your shoulders to visit your sister before you go? Would you visit your sister before the move if the baby wasn't part of the equation? If the answer is yes, visit her. If no, do whatever you want. Not the jerk. The lines between work and family are very blurred here. It's very difficult to be able to separate the two, and your sister took full advantage of utilizing and punishing you on a professional level for personal reasons, and has now also cut you off. I don't think you're the jerk. I think you would be well within your emotional rights to just cut ties and stay out with the opportunity she presented you with. Am I the jerk for my no plants or animals in the house policy? My kids really wanted pets, and so did my partner. They got a mixed breed puppy from the pound and 2 kittens. As these animals grew, none of the humans in my house did anything to care for them besides playing with them and cuddling. I got up at 5:30 a.m. to walk the dog before work. I cleaned the kitty litter boxes out. I took them to the vet. I had to buy and serve all of their food and cleaned up their eating areas afterward. People would just forget otherwise. Naturally, I also had to clean up after them when I'd arrive home, and inevitably, no one had bothered and there were messes all over the floor. If I made my partner or kids do it, they'd do a horrible job, to the point where they might as well have not even bothered. Same way with the plants. Partner wanted houseplants and to start indoor herb and vegetable gardens. Had fun with it for the first week, then totally ignored it. Dead leaves, spilt soil, bugs, etc. now proliferate in the garden area. If I don't water and groom the plants, it doesn't get done. I'm busy, and these are not my chosen hobbies. I like animals well enough, but they're a lot of work, and when they aren't attended to, destroy the house. I grew up with a family that hoarded pets, and our house was always nasty and smelly and embarrassing. I swore when I had my own place it would be different. The cats pee and spray everywhere, and I can't get to the litter box in time, and the dog chews up stuff and leaves big messes on the floor if I don't walk it. I'm the only one who will walk him when it gets cold. We have a fenced-in backyard. I bought a doghouse and announced he'll live outside from now on, till they can prove that they can take care of him better. Same with the cats. They're now outdoor kitties till my humans can show me they're ready for indoor ones. Of course, if the weather is extreme, I'll let them in. Plants are all going out. I'm done. Am I the jerk? New remarks. Hi, I've read all the responses, and I'm now going to stop with comments because I get the overall consensus. I'm going to copy and paste here what I put in another comment. I have no idea how to rehome these adult pets besides Facebook or Craigslist, and you don't really know who's going to take them. You don't know anything about the people showing up. They could be going from a bad situation here to even worse. Rehoming adult pets is not as easy as you're all making it out to be. I don't have abundant resources of time or energy to address this. It's causing problems, and this is the best solution I can come up with for now to calm everybody down. I've tried for over a year to do the best I possibly could for these pets, but I just can't anymore. I don't know how to force other people to do the right thing and be more responsible. Pets aren't just for snuggles and cuddles. They require a lot more attention and devotion. And yes, I've tried punishing my kids and withholding privileges for lack of care. I told my partner they weren't ready for pets. He brought them home anyway. If finding other homes for them is the best long-term solution, then I'll look into that. But I'm not taking them any place they can be put down, and I don't want them walking away with just whoever. I have a nice landscaped backyard with a big covered deck and patio, where he'll have a dog bed in addition to the doghouse I bought. And the cats will have little cat cozies too. It's not like I'm tossing them into the jungle. We live in a temperate climate, and of course I'll bring them inside when the weather's inclement. Where I live, which is in a countrified area, most people have a great deal of lot acreage and live down private dirt roads. It's not unusual at all to keep outdoor pets. Many people love and care for their pets, but it's very common for them to not have animals in the house. I didn't want to be like that, but I don't know what else to do. My pets, including the cats, have been indoor and outdoor all their life. The cats were not exclusively raised indoors. Now those are my excuses, and I won't give any more. I completely understand that many people feel like animals should never live outside. I'm listening to everyone here who is saying just give them away, Giving them away is better, and even to people saying return them to animal control or the pound, where there's a responsibility. If they aren't adopted, they will be euthanized. Even though I do not see it like this, that's definitely a majority opinion here. So I appreciate all these responses, and I will give more thought to this, but that's all I have to say for now. And honestly, I've gotten some very horrible inbox messages, calling me all kinds of names, as well as really mean stuff people shouldn't be saying to me. Not the jerk for being frustrated or implementing a no pets or plants rule. You are the jerk for putting the animals outside though. They'll likely just be even more neglected than they are now. Outdoor cats are a public nuisance. Take them to a shelter or rescue or find them a new home. You're the jerk. Rehome the animals instead of throwing them outside. Go to your local rescue and get help to rehome them. Those animals will not understand why they're being punished, and putting cats outside after being indoor animals is quite dangerous for them. Next time your family wants an animal, put your foot down rather than allowing that situation to happen. Shaking my head. Letting animals suffer just so you can make a point really upsets me. You're the jerk. You are their parent. You raised them. If they're lazy, it's you and your husband's fault. And putting these animals outside puts them and the wildlife in danger. Just rehome them instead of neglecting them. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how they're handling this or not? Please let us know. Nothing's worse than when your kids tell you they want pets, then you get them pets and they don't want to take care of them. My stepdaughter demands I raise her baby. I, 38 female, married my husband Sam, who's 47, 5 years ago. Sam always knew that I didn't want to have kids of my own. He was fine with it. He has a daughter, Leia, who's 25. His wife passed when Leia was only 10, and I met him when she was 15. I didn't meet her until a year after I started dating him. She was a sweet young adult, and we got along great. I did not move in with Sam until Leia left for college, though. Leia got pregnant last year. Her boyfriend did not want her to keep it, but she wanted to keep it anyway. He broke up with her, and Leia moved back in with us because she couldn't afford her lifestyle without him. She worked as a teacher, and he was the breadwinner. I had concerns about how she was going to raise a kid on a teacher's salary by herself. I suggested getting him to pay child support. She didn't want to, though. Sam thought I should stay out of it. Fine. But once she had the baby about 4 months ago, Leia seemed to realize having a baby is not the sunshine and rainbow she thought it was. She barely got any sleep during the last 4 months. All the while, Sam was helping her with the baby while I did almost all of the chores by myself. Now her leave is ending. She does not want to leave the baby at daycare or with a nanny. Sam and I both work as well. She asked if I could stay home with the baby, and I said no. First, it's not my baby, and I never wanted to raise one. Second, I have work. She asked Sam, who asked me to do it instead. I refused, stating the reasons again. Sam couldn't stay home because he earned more than me and covered more bills. I asked why Leia can't stay home with the baby herself. She said that she's young and she wants to build her career. I said many people take breaks to raise their kids, and she broke down crying about how she was so tired all the time being a mom and she needed something else in her life too. Sam feels bad for her and thinks we should help her. I suggested she pay for a nanny with her income, but Leia doesn't want strangers looking after her baby. Both of them are pressuring me to stay home with baby so she can go to work. I'm standing firm on my decision. Leia said yesterday how she wished her mom was still alive since she would have had her back. She said I don't love her and my husband is also mad at me. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my stepdaughter with her baby? Maybe necessary info. Leia's mom was a stay-at-home mom. Not the jerk. She didn't ask you to help. She asked you to pretty much give up your career and raise your step-grandkid. Help would have been if she had said, "Can you see about maybe watching the baby when my school has evening staff meetings?" Or, "Can you and dad work something out on your schedules so the baby spends as little time in daycare?" Many daycare centers also give discounts to teachers because they know how hard they work and how little they get paid. Also, once she knew she was going to keep the baby, that was when she should have started asking her coworkers and friends for childcare recommendations. Explain to her that you are not refusing to help with your granddaughter, but that you need to focus on your career as well, and that you will help her come up with a plan. She needs to find reliable childcare for when she's teaching during the day, and I'm sure someone at the school can help her find that. She needs to get child support from her ex to help pay the costs. It's his kid too, and he can pay child support without having visitation rights. You and your husband should sit down with her and figure out a good childcare option for when she's working. I can 100% guarantee you that her late mother would also agree with this. Also, don't take to heart what she's saying. Postpartum depression can be very difficult to cope with, and I promise she still likes you and is just dealing with a lot right now. Well, what do you think? Should OP quit her job so she can raise her stepdaughter's baby or not? Please let us know. No way, Jose. I'd divorce that guy too. I'm not some sort of live-in babysitter and you're not gonna try to make me one. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's a disappointment? I have 2 daughters who are 23 and 20. They're both so beautiful and smart, and I really love them both. I always wanted them to be strong and independent women who would stand on their own feet, and I try to raise them that way. They were both interested in volleyball. I always supported their interest. My younger is still playing on a team and also studying at a good university. She's really hardworking, and even if she does not succeed in playing professional volleyball, she will definitely have a good job. My older daughter quit both sports and school when she got pregnant at 18. When she first told us that she was pregnant, I was very upset and advised her to not have it because having a baby at such a young age would disrupt her life. She decided to keep it, and my wife supported this decision. To be honest, I was very insistent on her not having it at the time, but when I saw that she remained determined, I dropped the issue and supported her fully, even though I didn't want to. She got married quickly with the baby's father. Then she decided to stay at home and take care of her kid, and her husband started to work. I never wanted my daughter to be financially dependent on her husband, but I never voiced it either. But of course, my daughter knew that I'm bothered by this. Yesterday, we were having dinner with my daughters and my wife. My wife and daughter started talking about being a mother. My wife told her that even though I wanted her to not have it, I love my grandson very much now. My daughter asked me if that was so, and I said, of course I love him. I really love my grandson, but my daughter knew that I was bothered by her situation, so it didn't sound sincere at all. My daughter said I could give an honest answer. I told her that I really do love my grandson, but that I was disappointed that she had become a mother at an early age, had left school and her job, and was now dependent on a man. She didn't argue with me, but the rest of the night was a bit tense. At the end of the night, she went home, and my wife started a fight over what I said. I told her that she was the one who wanted an honest answer, but my wife is sure that I'm a jerk. My younger one agrees with me, but says I was rude to say it out loud. Edit. I'm not sorry that my daughter doesn't live the life I want. I'm sorry that she lives dependent on another person, and I can't say that their marriage is going very well. They chose the sport they wanted to be interested in, the university they wanted to go to, or their hobbies, etc. I didn't force anything on them. All I want is for them to be self-sufficient. I also told my daughter that I would pay for a babysitter if she wanted to go back to school or get a job. Yes, she is only 23 years old and could still have a career, but she's not doing that. Edit. Since yesterday, I've received many comments about what a good father I am and what a terrible father I am. It's okay. I said I would apologize to my daughter, which I did. It was a long conversation, but I don't have the time today, so I can't go into details. Also, no matter how much I go into detail, some people here seem to be very interested in making things up, so it would be a wasted effort. In short, I apologized and explained to her that I'm more worried than disappointed. Thankfully, she understood. I reminded her again that I love her and will always be there for her. Also, my suspicions about their marriage turned out to be correct. They don't have a good marriage. Her husband has suggested therapy, but she doubts it will work. This time, I didn't tell her what to do. I told her that I would support her in whatever she does. I told her that if she wants to go back to school or work, my offer of babysitter still stands, and if she wants more from me, I will always do it. So, I'm still the best father ever. I'm going to give you some serious advice, and I hope you listen to it, OP. I'm the daughter in this situation. I got pregnant when I was 16. Was it a great idea? Absolutely not. But once the decision was made, it was done. Well, my mom was exactly like you, consistently bringing up things like how she thought my life would be different. She was disappointed I became such a young mother. She had such bigger plans for me. It's such a shame I didn't listen to her when she told me not to have it, etc. for years. Well, guess what? Now I'm 37. I'm happy and successful, and my daughter is 21 now, and one of the best people literally on the planet. But guess who I haven't spoken to in 4 years because I got tired of listening to their crap over the years? That's right, my mom. If you value your relationship with your daughter and grandson, it's time to let go of the dreams you had for her life and focus on being a supportive and kind part of the life that she has now. All these "you're the jerk" comments are so unrealistic. I'm going to be downvoted into oblivion, but I don't care. Your kid asked a question, asked for an honest answer, and you gave one. She's 23, not 7. Don't ask a question you don't want an answer to. I'm sorry, but I thought your answer was honest, realistic, and kind. You admitted to being happy with your grandson and loving him, but you can't lie and say that you're necessarily happy with all of your kid's decisions. I'm sorry, but not being ecstatic that your kid has no education or job experience and is completely dependent on their spouse isn't a terrible thing. It's not a dig at stay-at-home moms or motherhood. It's just worry and fear that if anything happens, his kid and his grandkid will have massive financial issues. You didn't say she herself was a disappointment. If you had, I would be going off on you in the comments myself. When she committed to this new life plan, you put your thoughts aside and supported your kid despite your own feelings, which is what parenting is. Parents don't have to be necessarily happy with their kids' choices. They do have to support them though, and you did. Am I the jerk for not inviting any of my siblings to my wedding? So I'm 23, female, getting married in a few months. And I have a few older siblings who are 34, 36, and 38. All of them are now married, and since I was a teen when they got married and they had a child-free wedding, I was not invited to any of their weddings. My oldest sibling first had a child-free wedding, and then the others decided to follow. When my oldest brother got married, I was 10, so sure, I kind of get not inviting me. But I was still extremely upset. My oldest brother got married to a woman I really love, and I couldn't even witness it. The other brother got married when I was 12, so again, sure, I get not inviting a 12-year-old, but I was a very well-behaved kid, and again, his sibling. My sister got married when I was 15. At first, she didn't want a child-free wedding, but all of the family members convinced her because, OMG, it's so refreshing to be in a wedding where kids don't bring havoc. So she decided to cut it off at 16. And when I asked, can I be the one exception since I'm 15 and I'm your sister? She said no with a very serious tone. If we make an exception for you, what about other kids? It's not fair. I got upset and screamed that what's not fair is not participating in any of my siblings' weddings. My parents got upset with me and grounded me. And lastly, my brother got married when I was 17. At that point, I didn't care. I knew there was going to be a child-free wedding and that once again, I'm not invited. I didn't ask or beg. My step-cousin who had just turned 18 made the cut and I didn't. Well, as I said, I didn't care. I sent a quick congrats and that's it. My parents got furious on why I didn't even congratulate them. I just ignored them and spent all the time in my room with my now soon-to-be husband. Since I'm getting married, I decided none of them are going to be there since I wasn't allowed to be in theirs. When they didn't get the invitations, they all came to my house and demanded to know why they didn't get one. I simply explained, you didn't want me in your wedding, I don't want you in mine. I explained how hurt I was that I was not able to see any of my siblings get married and they should experience the same. They said that the weddings had alcohol, so they didn't want any young impressionable kids to be there. And I said all I wanted was to be included in the wedding part. I didn't care about the after party. Mom then started screaming about how unfair I am and how she wants all of her kids to be together on that beautiful day. Ironic, but I'm not backing down. I firmly believe in not inviting them. Am I the jerk? Update. We talked the day after I made the post. I said that the only way I'm going to invite them is if they explain absolutely everything. Otherwise, no invitation. After some weird looks and silence, the truth came out. I'm their cousin. My father's brother was raising me alone, and he passed, so I was raised by my uncle. They do not know who my mother is. I was young, required a lot of attention, wasn't their sibling, so they kind of distanced themselves from me. My brother said that he even hated me sometimes. My parents sat there ashamed for never telling me. My cousin just looked awkward. I left. And we eloped. So after all the drama, we talked and realized we were doing the whole wedding thing because we thought the others wanted it. We're not against the idea of a flashy wedding, but calm day with just the closest people were closest to our hearts. So we did just that. Just us and some of our friends. We're keeping the money for our dream country to visit. My parents had the audacity to get angry that there was no celebration, but I don't care to be honest. It was a day for us. That's it. I hope the update was not disappointing. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I'm never coming back? I'm 16, female. My mom and dad are divorced. My mom has remarried and has 3 stepkids, while my dad is still single and I live with him. I see my mom on some weekends, but I don't spend the night at her house because I like to spend the weekend with my friends. So I spent the summer with my mom. I didn't want to, but she's been telling me how she misses me and how she's going to make sure I have a good time. I said yes because she is my mom, plus she had been practically begging, making it hard for me to say no. The whole time I was at her house, I just wanted to go home. Instead of everyone washing their own plate, we all take rotations, so I'm left washing like 15 plates every other day because they serve food family style and there are so many chores. My mom didn't even let me meet friends all that much, and there was constant noise while at my dad's house. He makes me food and I wash the plates for the two of us. He allowed me to bring friends over, and me and him clean the house together. But since we are two people, the house is never that dirty to begin with. My dad let me talk to him informally. If I asked my mom, "What up?" her husband would go into a rant about how I shouldn't talk to her like that, and I was left babysitting a lot there. Me and my dad go out to eat every Sunday, like we go to a nice restaurant and try different cuisine. While here and we go out to eat, we all have to beg my mom and her husband. And if I'm feeling sad, my dad always takes me for a walk or to go get some food. If I'm sad here, nobody notices it, like I'm not even seen here. I just miss my dad and I never want to return here. My mom is sad I'm leaving and said we should do it again for every holiday. My dad is picking me up today because I start school on Wednesday, and I said that I was never coming back here and I went to pack all of my things. My mom's husband decided to come and give me a speech about how I shouldn't say stuff like this, and this just made me not want to come back here again, because why does she always report me to her husband when I told her that in private? I told my dad what I said, and he said I don't have to come back if I don't want to. But my response was a bit harsh. Was I the jerk? Edit. I'm not cutting off my mom. I meant I'm never sleeping at her house ever again. I said it harshly because I wanted her to know there was no room for debate. I didn't want to spend summer here, but she kept pressuring me to come and making me feel guilty because I don't live with her. I wanted her to know straight off the bat that I'm not repeating this experience. Update. Me and my mom still aren't close. I made it clear to her that I'm never visiting her home and that I still hope we could hang out outside of her home because I didn't like the way I was being treated, and she said okay, but proceeded to say that it's not my fault my dad spoiled me, but she will respect my decision. But I've been calling and texting her every week to hang out, but she always declines. I think she's holding a grudge, but if she doesn't want to put in any effort into our relationship, neither will I. This is just how she is. She says she's not angry, but does passive-aggressive stuff. Anyway, I asked my mom, or more like begged her, and I got a sleepover with her husband's daughter, Amy. Me and Amy have been begging for it for like 2 weeks. So she came to my house and we had a lot of fun. Her dad didn't give her any money, so my dad bought her a couple of things and some food from the food court. And in my house, I have like 3 big trash bags full of clothes that I was going to let my cousins go through because some of my cousins gave me their clothes. So it's a thing in my family where we give each other clothes that are too small or that we're not going to wear anymore. I was going to give them away, but when Amy saw the clothes and I told her I was giving them away, she asked if she could have some. So me and her went through Pinterest and I dressed her up with style and packed the clothes she liked in a big bag for her to take home. It didn't really occur to me that this would cause issues, but when my mom picked her up Sunday, she didn't have any problems. She said that it was nice that I gave her clothes, but later that evening, her husband called my dad and was yapping about how we gave his daughter our old clothes and started saying that we looked down on them. It caused so much drama. This morning he came and dropped off the stuff that my dad had bought for her and the trash bag of clothes that I had given her. I texted her and told her I would give her back the stuff on Tuesday because her school is like a 10-minute bus ride from mine, but I'm not sure if we're going to be allowed to hang out again. Edit. I wrote this around Labor Day because it happened on Labor Day. I visited her at her school and I gave her her stuff. I would have given her the clothes too, but she can't hide that amount of clothes in her bag. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to stop being a jerk and apologize? So I, 25 male, and my girlfriend, 25 female, let's call her Alex, have been together for 3 years. A few days ago it was her brother, George's, wedding and we attended. Us and a few of our friends were at the same table later at the venue. Turns out my girlfriend's half-sister, who's 26, let's call her Rachel, was invited and was assigned at the same table as me and my girlfriend. I have to note that Rachel is my mother-in-law's daughter. She had right before she had Alex, and then completely abandoned Rachel with her dad to live her life with Alex's dad. They hadn't found out about Rachel's existence until her mother-in-law confessed to George that she had a daughter before them. So George reached out and found Rachel, and she was happy to maintain a relationship with them. But Alex was completely against it and didn't even want to meet her. That's why Rachel and Alex don't get along. That was 4 years back. I also have to say that I've met Rachel and we get along well. Since Rachel didn't know anyone else at the wedding, George put her at the same table as me and Alex and our friends. The second Alex saw her, her mood changed. She kept throwing little innocent insults at her and then said she was just joking. Rachel didn't seem to mind until Alex said, "So, Rachel, how's your dad?" I almost lost it then. Rachel's dad passed when she was 15 and everyone knew. Rachel didn't say anything, but just looked at her with an almost pitiful look. She then excused herself and went to go get a drink. I turned to Alex and tell her that if she doesn't stop being a jerk and apologize, I'll leave her right then and there. Alex got defensive, saying that I'm defending Rachel because I'm attracted to her and that I want to give her a pity hookup because she's a poor orphan. She said all of that in front of everyone. I ignored her for the rest of the night, and when it was time to leave, I left her at home and went to sleep at my house. Am I the jerk? Update. I hadn't talked to Alex much after the wedding because I was still very mad for her behavior. I stayed at my house and avoided her calls and attempts to contact me in any way. She came to my house twice, but I didn't answer the door. I wanted to think, and I made the post yesterday because I had started doubting if I was right. I now realize I am. I went to her house this morning and asked her to talk. She started apologizing to me for what she had said, but I told her I'm not the one she should be apologizing to. She realized what I meant and stopped talking. I kept going, and I told her that it's over between us and to never call me again. She started freaking out and said that she would apologize to Rachel if it meant I didn't break up with her. I agreed, knowing that I would leave her even if she apologized, because she's only doing it so I'll stay. Still, I wanted to hear her apologizing because it was fair for Rachel. She called Rachel right then and there, and after a while, Rachel picked up. Alex started telling her how sorry she is for what she said, and that it had been eating her up for the past few days and she can't sleep, etc. Lies. And from what I saw, Rachel knew she was lying. I don't think Rachel even cared to hear an apology since she said a simple, "Okay," and hung up. Alex turns to me and asks, "Are you happy now?" I wasn't, and I told her. I turn to leave and tell her that I'll come pick up my stuff while she's at work. She starts freaking out and screaming at me how I tricked her into apologizing to a jerk and that it's not her fault her mother went around making mistakes before she had her, and how there's a reason Rachel was left by her mother. At that moment, I knew that whoever was in front of me isn't the same person I fell in love with. I just left. She's been calling me for hours now, but I blocked her. Rachel called too to ask if I'm still alive since she learned from George that I broke up with Alex. I told her that it's good riddance and I apologized again for the wedding incident. She once again told me that it's not my fault, so I don't have to apologize. So that's it. I'm quite happy to be honest, and it's not like I'll miss the toxicity. My Karen ex is demanding my Disney Plus password. I know my ex-wife has been using my Netflix account for many years. I didn't really mind. I'm now remarried, we have a kid, and I live far away. I basically have no contact with my ex, though I still do regularly stay in touch with several of her siblings and her father. When I signed up for Hulu and Disney Plus, I reused my Netflix password. Turns out my ex was using those services as well. I signed up to those after we were divorced. I got a notification that another password was breached and decided to begin using a password manager to make new passwords for everything. I'm also turning on two-factor authentication anywhere I can. My ex just texted me and asked for the new password. Her kid, from her subsequent marriage, really wants to watch something on Disney tonight. I've not responded, but my plan is to say no. I'm certain she'll make a production of this and complain to her family members and our mutual friends about how I'm somehow in the wrong, but I don't really care anymore. I'm not being a jerk though, am I? She's a grown adult. She can sign up for her own account. You're the jerk. It's a darn streaming service. Just share the password and get off your high horse. You obviously have the money to pay for it, and maybe she doesn't. Have you even considered that? This is also a way to stick it to these big corporations. You literally have the chance to get back at these greedy clowns, but because you can't get over your feelings for your ex, you choose to be bitter about something that happened years ago. If I were you, I'd call her up and apologize for how selfish you've been. I'll never understand how men like you can be so greedy.
You remind me of my sorry excuse of a father I had growing up. He wouldn't share anything with anyone. His snacks, pops, magazines, stamps, we weren't allowed to touch any of his stuff. Long story short, once my father was so old he couldn't take care of himself any longer, he got into a low-income assisted living facility. We finally had the chance to take all of his stuff that we always wanted. I even live in the old man's house now, and once he bites the dust, it will be put in my name, whether he likes it or not. Power of attorney is all that matters, and that belongs to my big brother. Sorry, Dad. Looks like we got the last laugh. I even burned his entire stamp collection in the backyard, and I sent him a video of it. Haven't seen the old geezer smile since.
Congrats! You have more issues than Windows 10.
Well, what do you think? Should OP give his new password to his ex or not? Please let us know.
Never share your passwords with anyone, especially your ex.
Am I the jerk for stealing a name from my sister to use for my baby? I, 25 female, had a couple names picked out since I found out I was pregnant. Mindy if it's a girl, and Derek if it's a boy. However, in my last few weeks of pregnancy, I added another name to the list for a boy, Morgan. My sister, who's 28, and I have had a close relationship for a long time, so I let her know that I had another name I was considering for a boy. And when I told her, she was shocked, saying that Morgan is the name she wanted if she ever got pregnant with a boy. She has fertility issues, so it would be a while before she got pregnant, if at all. She pleaded with me to not use that name because it was a family name on her husband's side of the family, and asked me to use the name I had originally chosen for a boy, and I told her that because she's not pregnant and might not be able to even have kids, then it wouldn't matter if I chose that name or not, and she got upset by this. A few weeks passed, and I was past my due date, so I was scheduled for a C-section in a few days. After I told her this, she again asked me to please not use that name, and I told her that I wasn't sure what name I was going to pick yet, but my husband and I had already decided we would be using that name. After I gave birth, my husband and I named our son Morgan, but I didn't tell my sister because I knew she would get upset. This was my baby, and I shouldn't have to give up the name I want for the slight chance she could maybe one day get pregnant. She messaged me to congratulate me on the delivery and asked what the name was. I told her we still hadn't decided what name, so I could avoid drama as I had just given birth. My mom called her the next day to tell her about the baby and mentioned the name to her before I could tell her, and of course she got upset. She messaged me asking why I didn't tell her that we chose that name, and why did she have to find out from Mom. I told her that it was what my husband and I decided, and it has nothing to do with her, so I didn't see the point in telling her when I knew what her reaction would be. Her husband was devastated, and so was she, and now we barely talk, at least not like we used to. I told her she needs to get over it, because I was the one who was pregnant, not her. She's being really immature about it by not talking to me and getting this upset over a name. Our relationship isn't the same now, and she says it's my fault. So, am I the jerk? Edit to answer some questions. I only found out that it was a family name after my husband and I had decided on it. I wasn't trying to throw her infertility in her face. I was just trying to get her to be reasonable and see that I'm the one who was pregnant at that time, so she shouldn't get a say on what I do or don't name my baby. I didn't choose the name to hurt her or to be spiteful. I just really like the name. She still talks to me because we are family. She was my maid of honor after all of this happened, so I think she's moved past it. Or at the very least, she doesn't bring it up anymore. She doesn't seem very attached to my son, but she's very involved with my other sister's kids, which hurts, but is ultimately her choice whether or not she wants a good relationship with my son or not. I don't think that's up to me at all. Also, I won't be changing his name, and I don't think I should have to. She's decided not to name any potential kids she has Morgan because it doesn't sit right with her to use the name after I did, and I think it would be weird to have two kids with the same name, so I agree with her on that. But she won't tell anyone the new names that she has picked now anyway. You're the jerk. This line makes you the jerk. I told her that because she's not pregnant and might not be able to have kids, that it wouldn't matter if I chose that name or not. It begs the question, did you choose the name Morgan to rub your sister's infertility in her face? Summed up my thoughts perfectly. Using the name was also a bit iffy given the sister's explanation, but possibly forgivable on its own. Then add in all the other details, and it's clear that OP is the jerk. Yeah, I don't think picking that name makes OP the jerk. It's everything else in this post, from the lack of empathy to the way that it was handled. There's something just evil about the way it was written too. Just so insidious and matter-of-factly, without a care in the world or any kind of concern or kindness or empathy.
It is pretty horrifying. I couldn't do this to my high school bully, let alone my sister. You're the jerk. If you were as close to your sister as you claim, you'd understand that this name was important to her and her husband. You're also throwing her infertility in her face and acting like the chance of her having kids are slim to none. She could adopt the baby too and name that kid as well. That's crappy. The state of the relationship is your fault. Normally, I'm all for people naming their kid what they want to, but it sounds like you're purposely adding salt to the wound. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
If the story had been written a little differently, they would all be siding with OP, saying that her sister has no right to decide what she names her own kid.
I made my parents homeless for getting rid of my dog. I, female 27, lived with my parents until last week. I have a dog that I love. She's been my best friend since I graduated university. I'm not very social, and I prefer her company to most people I know. I have had boyfriends and even a short relationship that ended amicably. I'm just not really interested in much beyond my work and my dog. My parents think that this is a shortcoming, but I do not. My brother also lives with us. He's in high school and he doesn't pay rent. I pay about 50% of everything in the house, including groceries. It's about the same as rent would cost, and I get the basement suite. It isn't a legal suite in the sense that it could be rented, but it is fine for a family member. It's because of building codes and stuff. It would cost a bunch of money to make it suitable for a renter. So my mom decided that the reason I'm not actively looking for a husband is because my dog takes too much of my attention. My pup has some health problems, but nothing I can't afford, and nothing that affects her quality of life. So my mom gave her away while I was at work. I came home and she was gone, along with all of her stuff, her toys, her leash, everything. I lost it on my mom. I told her that if she didn't tell me where my dog was, I was calling the cops and saying that they had stolen my dog and having her charged. I went to the place where my dog was and I got my dog back. I then went back to my parents' house and packed all of my stuff that was important to me and went to a friend's house. My dad has been calling and texting me asking about money for October. I told him he should have thought about that when he allowed a crazy person to steal from me. Since my dad lost his job because of the current world disease, they cannot afford all of the household bills without my help. My dad says that they will be out of money in 3 months without me. I don't trust them anymore. My family thinks I'm a jerk for caring more about my dog than I do about them. To answer some questions I know that will come up, yes, I am on the spectrum. I may also lean towards ace, even though I have enjoyed things with guys before. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They can move into the basement and rent out the room upstairs. OP. Nice. I will suggest that to my father. It's important for you to understand that you are not here to negotiate with them. This isn't you trying to get their approval to get out. You're already out. They're not your responsibility. Your tone should convey this clearly. You are the wronged party. You stole from me. It isn't my job to figure out your problems that you create. You can try to get a roommate or rent out the basement, but this is your mess, and you two are old enough to solve your own problems. You're lucky that I haven't pressed charges. If you continue to harass me, continue to behave poorly, that will change. I have no problem with letting law enforcement decide who's right and who's a criminal. Any more missing property of mine will be met with additional charges. If you have a lawyer friend, maybe have them type up a formal-sounding letter if they don't stop. Also get some friends to go with you to move your stuff out. Warn your brother of them possibly trying to guilt him for rent, steal his future income, or using credit cards in his name to pay off their financial obligations and messing up his credit score. Make sure he secures his social and all relevant future financial documents and accounts, as should you. Am I the jerk for refusing my coworker's apology and being nasty back? I have ADHD and autism. I've been with my job for 12 years. In July of 2021, the company hired 4 new people, Tom, Jamie, Alana, and Deanna, fake names, to make the team that I work on. Unfortunately, none of the new people on my team are very nice to me because I'm odd. The only person who is ever kind to me is the new manager of our team. The new people started holding potluck meals. The first time I found out after the fact, while they were eating without me. I asked them to let me know next time and I would bake something. The second time it happened, they said it was an oversight. Oops. By the third time, I got the hint. I wasn't welcome. I was hurt, but I let it go and I just did my job. Our new manager asked why I never participate in the team potluck. I told her the truth. I'm never invited, but she swore that Alana texted me. I told her that none of them had ever contacted me except for essentials by email only, and they make a point to avoid me. When my manager confronted the group, they lied and swore they had asked me, but were unable to produce the promised text. My manager and boss decided to no longer permit potlucks on company property. The next day, they cornered me in the break room when I went to eat lunch and began to shout at me for ruining their lunches. I ended up having a meltdown. I told them I didn't ask our manager to do anything about it, that our manager said they called it a team lunch, that I was part of the team too, and she was bothered that I was excluded and took it upon herself to do something about it. I said that I knew I was weird, and that was why they didn't like me. I told them that I'm doing my best I can to fit in, but I'm not stupid. I know I'm always being left out on purpose and lied to and about, and that it hurts to never feel like I fit in no matter what. By the end, I was sobbing myself sick, and my mom had to come pick me up early because I was panicking so badly. I found out later my coworkers were put on administrative leave without pay and forced to go to sensitivity training before they could come back to work. A few days later, Tom approached me to apologize and said his nephew was autistic too, and he should have realized and done better. I asked him, if someone treated your nephew the way you treated me for over a year and only apologized after getting caught and punished for it, what would you tell your nephew to do? Would you tell him to accept that apology? He quietly admitted that he wouldn't, that he'd tell his nephew to tell them to go buzz off. I told him to go tell himself that, get back to work and leave me alone. No one else even tried after that. My manager is now saying I overreacted and I should just accept the apology and give them another chance to keep the peace. My job coach says I should apologize too, but I really don't want to. Am I the jerk? A year? And your manager is saying you're overreacting? They're underreacting. Sensitivity training isn't enough. Your coworkers did this with intent for over a year and then had the audacity to shout at you when their crappy behavior was called out. My own anger at your treatment aside, I would accept the apology in time. I do think that what you said to Tom was perfect. You are 100% not the jerk. Exactly. OP didn't reject the apology directly, just put a mirror up to it. Let them invite OP out the next time and show that they mean it with kindness instead. Not the jerk, OP. Tell them it's not that you're rejecting Tom's apology, you just prefer to see it in changed behavior before you can accept it wholeheartedly. Your company can accept that as both professional and reasonable, as well as your colleagues. You don't owe anyone an apology. Never. Not for this. And please note that others didn't bother. Don't assume it's because of what Tom said. Why are they even talking about it? They should each approach you anyway and apologize. You have the right to respond, and they the duty to at least hear it. I'm so sorry you went through that. Kudos on your resilience and standing up for yourself. I hope you see it now too. It wasn't just a meltdown. Fingers crossed they change. Accepting an apology is a personal choice, not something that should be subject to a superior's order. For that alone, I have to say, not the jerk. I think you need to ask yourself if Tom's apology was sincere, and if it would benefit you to offer forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for him, it's for you. When you've thought about it, do what feels right to you. Based on what you've written, none of the other 3 people have apologized, so there's nothing to accept. I'm not sure what you would be apologizing for.
What happens when a wild Karen demands that OP marries her ASAP? And the craziest part? They've only been dating for 3 months. Come find out in our next video that just popped up on your screen. Tap it with your thumb or click it with your remote, and Karen and I will be right there waiting for you.